Hey truckers, today we are seeing part 9 of From Enemies to Lovers, a hidden marriage story. Let's dive into the video. As they watched all the auditioning artists walk in and then out, one after another, the ones who had yet to go in inevitably felt the pressure increase, especially since most of the failed candidates were A-listers. When the advertisement director of Noble, Cook, continuously scolded furiously in the audition hall, everyone became increasingly nervous. Cook's Chinese was not too shabby, so everything that he was yelling could be heard clearly by everyone outside. Did they really understand what I was saying? I'm suspecting if they are even intelligent enough. I want nobility. Elegance. Not a soulless puppet doll dancing on a music box. Feng Xiaowen? No, she can't do. Her performance was very good, but her eyes betrayed her inferior soul. Su Jiaojiao? Are you kidding? She was practically a walking jewelry rack. Plain beyond anything. Up-to-date OVLS on OVL bin.cm. Meng Shi? She can be an excellent actress, but definitely not the goddess that's as elegant as the bright moon that I had in mind. The previous one? You mean number 13? Oh my God! She was practically lying to us. She did not know anything about Guqin at all. As they listened to Cook's harsh and brutal criticisms, the female artists outside who were originally strutting their egos around started to look uncertain of themselves. Does this white guy actually know anything? He just criticized everyone. I think he's just purely prejudiced against Chinese people. His words are too harsh. It's just a performance, so a little acting is fine. Do we have to really know everything? Based on his logic, actors would need to be a god that's well-versed in everything. Very quickly, number 14's turn was up. Li Yueling haughtily declared, only those without potential will look for excuses. Then she walked confidently into the audition hall. When Li Yueling pushed the door to enter, a frustrated Cook was suddenly stunned for a while. Li Yueling donned a luxurious vintage Chinese cheongsam with an expensive pearl necklace draped on her neck. Her hair was tied into a bun and pinned with a translucent jade. Not only did she embody nobility and elegance, she displayed China's features very wonderfully too. When he saw Li Yueling, Cook's eyes shone and his tone was clearly much gentler. Oh, my dear baby, come over quickly, come to me. Let me look at you closely. Li Yueling let Cook evaluate her without much fear. She was highly educated since she was a child, so every word, move, and smile of hers naturally revealed the charisma of nobles, and she did not need to act at all. After Cook had examined her, he was very satisfied. He said, "Miss Li, you can begin your performance now." The audition hall was very big and it was filled with all sorts of props including the guzheng, piano, calligraphy pen, Chinese chess, needle and thread, fans, handkerchiefs. Li Yueling casually skimmed and touched the guqin. As compared to the guqin was more difficult to play. It had a 4-octave range and 2 tones, with 7 open strings, 91 harmonics, and 147 stop strings. The techniques of playing it were abundant. If one were to simply pretend to lie to Cook, that would not be impossible, as Cook had lived in China for 20 years and loved the Chinese culture deeply. He was someone who was well-versed with Chinese culture. Before this, a female artiste who tried her luck with the instrument was insulted harshly by Cook. When he saw that Li Yueling had chosen the guqin as well, Cook's eyes held some reservations. However, as she started to play, his gaze started to change. When Li Yueling had finished her performance, Cook had a struggled expression on his face for the first time. The previous candidates had been rejected by him on the spot immediately and were made to leave. Cook discussed with his assistant on the side for quite a while. Finally, the assistant walked to Li Yueling and informed with a friendly attitude, "Miss Li Yueling, our audition will continue." Could you please wait outside for a short while? These words meant that they were already very satisfied with her performance, but they still wanted to see if there was anyone better. Li Yueling nodded slightly, of course. Pfft, how could there be anyone better than her? This endorsement was definitely hers. Under the watchful eyes of everyone else who remained, Li Yueling finally came out of the hall. She had actually gone in for a whole 10 minutes, and the sound of Guxing playing inside did not receive Cook's negative shouting. Li Yueling's face revealed a determined expression, and unlike the other eliminated candidates who had already left, she found a place to sit down and continued to wait. From her attitude, it was already very obvious that Li Yueling had been chosen to be one of the finalists. She might even be the chosen candidate in Cook's heart, and if everyone else after her could not fare better, they would all just be a poor comparison to her. Immediately, all the other artistes felt shaken, especially those with slightly higher statuses who obviously did not want to embarrass themselves, yet they did not want to give up on such a high-end endorsement either. The next candidate, number 15, please be ready, the assistant informed outside the door. At that moment, Ningxi remained immersed in her own world. Ling Zhizhi did not disturb her and only quietly accompanied her by her side. Li Yueling was even more delighted when she watched Ningxi curl up in a corner, looking shabby. Sis Ling, I don't want to say anything, but out of everyone you could choose, why did you have to choose this money-losing rookie from Glory World? At this point, you wouldn't still insist on letting her go into audition, would you? You won't just be embarrassing yourself, but the entire Glory World too. As they heard Li Yueling's words, everyone's gaze suddenly fell onto Ningxi. Exactly, there was still this one to take the bottom spot. With her in front of them, they would not look too horrendous to compare to Li Yueling, would they? Apart from the artistes who were waiting to watch a scandalous drama, there were also others who only observed the scene in front of them. They thought to themselves that maybe Ningxi intentionally dressed like this, but in reality had a unique trick she did not want them to know. Perhaps she would even change her outfit later. Sis Zhizhi, I'm ready. In the corner, Ningxi opened her eyes. Ling Zhizhi nodded, good luck. Number 15, start your audition, the assistant started to call out. Ningxi stood up and adjusted her skirt and collar under everyone's watchful gaze and walked into the audition hall with a poker face. Read lat stchers on n/v/l/b/i.cm. As soon as Ningxi walked in, there was a frenzy outside the audition hall. My God, she really dared walk in looking like that? I thought she would have some kind of trick in the end. Who knew that she would really walk in looking like a beggar? Cook is so scary. Isn't she afraid of being scolded to death? TSK, those who don't know are unafraid. Indeed, as the female artists thought that, Cook's thunderous scoldings could be heard from the inside. Oh my God. You're insulting me. Insulting noble. Please leave immediately. Li Yueling sipped on the fruit juice her assistant had delivered and she said beyond delight, Pfft, this was even more entertaining than I'd imagined. Since she knew she would fail, why did she still try her luck? Did she really think a miracle would appear? As Li Yueling finished, she picked up her phone and casually made a call. Hello, Xuelua. Yueling, is your audition over? How did it go? A gentle voice asked from the other end of the line. It just ended. Obviously, I did not disappoint you. There were some tough rivals within the previous 13 candidates, but none of the others after her were a competition to her, so she was completely confident to win the spot. I knew you definitely won't have a problem. Haha, I want to thank you for letting me have this chance too, or else, this endorsement would definitely be yours. Explore Tati stories at no/l//bin.cm. Look at you, we're sisters. What are you saying all this for? Besides, you've helped me a lot, especially in the big deal with my father's company the last time. It was all thanks to you for introducing your mother. Just a small matter. Oh, right, you know who I saw earlier? Who? Your family's village foster child, Ning Shi. How did she end up there for the audition? Who knows what sheet luck she had that she actually got through the preliminaries. But it's a good thing that she had luck because there is a good show going on right now, you know? Our advertisement's theme is noble, yet she came over looking as shabby as a beggar. What? Is she crazy? I think she must be. You don't have to be afraid of someone like her, she can just ruin herself. Okay, I will get off the phone now. Wait for my triumphant return. At the same time, inside the audition hall. As she faced Cook's face of disbelief and ridicule, Ning Shi stood there quietly without any change in her expression, clarity shining in her eyes. Instead of her turning her head away in shame, it was Cook, who when faced with those pair of clear eyes, he suddenly had a kind of guilty illusion. Actually, the girl's dressing today was nothing that had gone too overboard. It was only when compared to those luxuriously accessorized artistes outside that she seemed to be nonchalant and casual. The dress she wore seemed very dirty and old, but it was actually very clean and neat. Her porcelain makeup-free face made him think of a Chinese prose, the clear water revealed a lotus, engraved by nature. However, facing a candidate that had not prepared wholeheartedly at all, Cook still felt insulted and insisted on immediately rejecting her. You. I'm talking to you, don't you understand Chinese? You've been eliminated, please leave immediately and don't affect everyone else after you. He did not even bother to look at her name. Ignoring Cook's roaring scoldings, Ning Shi walked over to the guqin that Li Yueling had played earlier. She casually plucked several of the strings. Cook was even angrier when he saw her actions and he growled, "Please don't simply touch." Before he could finish, the sound of smooth and skilled playing of the guqin started to enrapture him. This is, you actually know Guanglin San. Cook looked slightly shocked. This was one of the guqin tunes that was famous for being notoriously difficult. Earlier, Li Yueling had only chosen the song Wu Leaves Dancing in the Autumn Wind, which was elementary compared to this. Ning Shi did not say anything. Instead, she slowly sat down in front of the guqin and continued to play. Cook was increasingly drawn in by the music and suddenly forgot what he wanted to yell out earlier. Guanglin San is one of the top 10 guqin tunes in all of Chinese music history. Its rhythm is emotional, generous, and the only song in the preserved guqin's tunes to invoke the atmosphere of war zones, to express the vehemence of seeking revenge for a father. It was a tune full of thought and artistic personality. As he listened to the Guanglin San tune played by the girl's hands, Cook became more and more enchanted. This was his favorite song among all of the guqin tunes because it was more than just extravagant sounds, it also expressed a spirit to rebel and determination to fight. What was even more shocking to him was that he never thought that as a girl, not only was she skilled, but she could also accurately perform the momentum of Guanglin San. Cook was completely immersed in the sound of the instrument as he stared at the girl in front of him. Her outfit was not colorful and her face was bare, she even looked like a lowly beggar. However, when she sat in front of that guqin, when she started to play the song, despite dressing like a beggar, no one would think that she really was one. She must have had a story. When the song had finished, Cook took a long while to return to his senses. Finally, he tried to suppress his emotions as he said, "Miss, your playing of Guanglin San has exceeded my expectations." "Thank you," Ning Shi nodded slightly in gratitude, revealing nothing on her face. No matter whether the girl in front of him was being scolded or being complimented, she remained unbothered. He actually felt a sense of nobility from her. Yes. It was nobility. In fact, it was the kind that only a real aristocrat would have. Even if one was shabby, the noble charisma within one's bones would not change forever. Visit no.v3lb/n.cm for new OVL. This was too magical. Everyone else earlier could not invoke this feeling in him. Even Li Yueling's performance lacked full marks as he felt it was too deliberate and artificial. How did the girl who dressed like a beggar in front of him give him a sense of elegance? Cook evaluated again the girl, and the emotions in his heart could not be explained. When he finally calmed himself down, he continued the audition. May I ask, what do you understand about the meaning of the term noble? Earlier all the other artistes had similar answers. They thought that being noble meant having a good education, to be cultured externally and internally. Naturally, he approved of such an answer. At this moment, he anticipated the girl's reply in suspense. When she heard Cook's question, Ningxi knew that Cook had already approved her earlier performance. Now, she had only one last step left. After choosing her words carefully, she started to explain, I believe that true elegance and nobility is not just to don the name of luxurious brands, not to show off the expensive accessories on hand, not to boast about your own beauty and educational qualifications. True nobility is, even if dressed in ragged clothes and messy hair, not being able to conceal the noble charisma within. When he heard this, Cook's eyes lit up and his face brightened. Ningxi continued, smell of fragrance to know a woman. A perfume is a luxury item that can reveal a person's taste better than any other items. I think, for women, perfume is more important than apparel, just like charisma is more important than external factors. Perfume is one of the classic trendy essentials. It's different from other trendy elements such as clothing, makeup, and hairdo. Perfume is the most classic and long-lasting thing a woman can have. A good fragrance will never be outdated. Cook could not control his surprise and joy at having found his perfect girl. He nodded in resignation, that's right. You said it very well. This girl's interpretation had perfectly fit their theme. Outside the audition hall. At first, all the artistes who were waiting outside heard Cook's angry scoldings, then it suddenly quieted down, and what ensued was an emotional playing of the guqin. One of the artistes scoffed, and here I was thinking what killer trick Ling Zhizhi has prepared. Turns out that she also played the guqin just like Li Yueling. With Li Yueling having gone in before her, isn't she just asking to be insulted? Ling Zhizhi's professional standards are indeed increasingly unworthy. Now even if it was a small assistant role, I would be worried to let her take it up. Some of those who knew a little more about music frowned and said, this song seems to be a harder tune than the one Li Yueling played earlier, but I think even if this was so, there wouldn't be much use. Li Yueling was better versed with the guqin, so when she heard the smooth and skillful playing of the difficult song, she was nervous for a second. However, she very quickly recovered her arrogance again. Sis Ling, even if your village girl rookie didn't know better, surely you would? For such an elegant instrument like the guqin, in the olden days, they had to clean their hands with incense and wear suitable apparel out of respect before even touching the guqin. Based on what she wore, she is practically insulting Chinese history. Just wait for her to be scolded by Cook. Everyone else heard what Li Yueling had said and agreed with her. Ling Zhizhi remained unbothered and focused on waiting for Ningxi's results. When Ningxi did not get chased out by Cook the moment she started playing, it indicated to those present that she had already made the first step to success. Only, Ningxi's idea was still a little too risky. She still did not have complete confidence about how the final outcome would pan out. Your favorite ovals at n/vl/bin.com. Several moments later, when the song had finished, there was no thunderous scolding from Cook heard at all. In fact, it was pin-drop silent. Everyone looked at one another, they could only continue to wait. Time ticked by even longer than when they had waited for Li Yueling to come out of the hall. Some people started to be impatient and anxiously walked back and forth venting, what are they doing inside? Why isn't she out yet? Who knows? It's probably because the director is too cross with her that 1 or 2 sentences aren't enough to express his hatred. Cook is one of the top 10 advertisement directors globally, and he is known for his temper. I think this time even Glory World will be dragged down. At the same time, inside the audition hall. After Ningxi had finished explaining her interpretation of nobility, Cook approved of her and finally decided to dig more about Ningxi's identity. He took the candidate details from his assistant and saw a familiar name that made him gasp in pleasant surprise. Ningxi, oh my god. You're Meng Changge. Meng Changge, yes, that's a character for one of the films that I was involved in, she acknowledged. Ling Zhixi mentioned that she had sent in her clip of the world, so Ningxi was not too shocked by his reaction towards her name, but she wondered if Cook's expression was a little over the top. Dearest Miss Ning, the first time I saw Meng Changge, I was very drawn to the character and could not wait to watch this movie. Could you please tell me when it will be out in the theaters? Cook looked slightly guilty for having even thought of her as a nuisance at the start. She looked vastly different when dressed in olden-day outfits and more contemporary clothing. He could not recognize her immediately and had almost chased her out at the start. For an actor, the happiest moment would definitely be when their movie character receives recognition, so Ningxi politely answered, the movie is currently still in post-production editing, so I'm not too sure of the actual date of release either. Probably in another month's time. Director Cook, thank you very much for your love for the character. No, she deserves my praise. Even though the Meng Changge was a protagonist in the movie, she had a sort of elegance that stood out from the other characters, which was why he had picked a rookie like Ningxi among the crowd of A-list stars. Cook did not expect her performance today to be so outstanding. It was indeed an unexpected surprise. Cook looked remorseful and apologized, Miss Ning, I'm very sorry. Because of my ignorance and shallowness, I almost missed out on your exquisite talent. You're right, true nobility is part and parcel of charismatic qualities and not exclusively an extrinsic matter. You updates tnvel/by. Com. Cook brought Ningxi to have a look at the fragrances that were displayed on the exhibit shelves, explaining, for 2 decades, the Noble brand has been passed on from generation to generation and it insists on retaining the fine techniques of aroma distillation. The ingredients that are chosen to make each scent come from the best of the best regions, hence enhancing the unspoken agreement that our fragrances are for the deserving aristocrats. I'm very honored to be shooting an advertisement for a brand like this. To completely embody Noble's charm, I have a very strict demands for the spokesperson. Thank God that we have crossed paths, you and I. I am confident that this will be a splendid collaboration. As he watched Cook chat non-stop with Ningxi, the assistant had to walk over from the side and remind him softly, Director, there are still many people waiting outside. Should I inform the next candidate? Cook suddenly stopped and quickly said, No need, Miss Ning is the spokesperson I want. You can tell everyone else to leave. Outside the audition hall. The artistes watched anxiously as the door finally opened and Cook's assistant walked out. Honorable ladies, Noble spokesperson has been chosen, so today's audition ends here. Thank you, everyone, for coming all the way here. After this, the Noble Group will arrange a grand 3-day vacation for everyone. We hope everyone will enjoy the happy memories. Everyone was stunned, especially those who had not even gone into audition. What? Already chosen? But we haven't even auditioned. Even though it was hard to accept the fact, most of them had seen it coming. Many high-flying artistes were even relieved that they did not have to embarrass themselves in the auditions. They courteously walked over to Li Yueling and greeted, Yueling, congratulations to you. If it was Yueling who got this endorsement, I'd be convinced. Li Yueling stood up elegantly and bashfully accepted the congratulatory wishes from the crowd. She then walked over to the assistant to say, Thank you for Director Cook's recognition. I won't disappoint him. Even though the assistant's Chinese was not as fluent as Cook's, he could sense that something was wrong. He corrected, "No, no, no, beautiful ladies, I think you've gotten it wrong." Wrong? What's wrong? Everyone was confused. The noble spokesperson whom Director Cook has chosen is not Miss Li Yueling, but Miss Ning Shi. The assistant slowed down his speech and used whatever Chinese he could to answer them clearly. What? Ning Shi? The one who dressed like a beggar? Are you kidding? When Li Yueling heard this, her face fell flat and she probed, "Mr. Assistant, has there been a misunderstanding? Are you sure Mr. Cook said it was Ning Shi?" She had already reported the good news to Ning Xuelua, but now they were telling her that the spokesperson role had not gone to her. Not even anyone else, but that village girl Ning Shi who she had been ridiculing? The assistant confidently nodded, "I'm not wrong, it was indeed number 15, Miss Ning Shi, who just entered earlier." Li Yueling took a deep breath, then said seriously, "Mr. Assistant, I'm barely convinced by the outcome of this audition. We need a proper explanation." The assistant looked helpless and feebly said, "Miss Li, this is Director Cook's decision. I have no say in it." "Then, let me meet Director Cook. I want to talk to him face to face," Li Yueling insisted. Now the other female artistes were shocked as well, and they were all suspicious of whether the assistant had made a mistake. Even Ling Zhizhi was taken aback by the results. The assistant had no option but to say, "Okay, I will convey your message." With the crowd anxiously waiting, the assistant disappeared into the hall and came out very quickly to announce to everyone, "Miss Li, Director Cook told me to tell you and the other ladies present to wait for Noble's advertisement to be released, then everyone will naturally know that Miss Ning Shi is the perfect fit for the brand." When he was done, he bowed like a proper gentleman and did not say anything further. He looked towards the corner of the room and questioned, "May I ask if you are Miss Ning's manager, Madame Ling Zhizhi? Director Cook has invited you to enter to discuss the collaboration details in concrete." "Okay, thank you." Ling Zhizhi was stunned for a while, then she got up and followed the assistant into the audition hall. Left in the waiting area were a flabbergasted Li Yueling and a group of outraged female artistes. "Wow! Is it really Ning Shi? We actually lost to someone like her? This is such a joke." Actually, I wanted to say earlier, setting aside the fact about what type of person Ning Shi is and how she dresses, she's an artiste under Ling Zhizhi, so how simple can she be? Ling Zhizhi would not be so stupid to make such a rookie mistake. Alas, they really came prepared. We were too careless. TSK, it looks there's another black beauty in the entertainment circle. Pfft, Li Yueling was really humiliated this time. Before this, she was overthrown by Ling Manyun, and now that Ling Manyun has finally left the scene, yet another one of Ling Zhizhi's artistes has knocked her off her pedestal again. After they finished discussing the collaboration, on the way back, Ling Zhizhi looked at the girl beside her thoughtfully. The more time they spent together, the more she felt like she was unfathomable. Before this, Ning Shi kept to herself and did not even have lunch or breakfast. Now, she was wolfing down at a hot dog. When she saw Ling Zhizhi watching her, she asked with stuffed cheeks, "Sis Zhizhi, why are you looking at me like that? Don't you feel lucky to have a smart partner like me?" Ling Zhizhi laughed slightly. "Before this, I kept thinking that this way was very risky because Cook is very familiar with China. I was worried that your acting skills would reveal loopholes. Who knew that you could play the Guqin so well? To reach such mastery, you would need at least 10 years of experience, but I don't recall seeing this skill in your portfolio." Ning Shi almost spit when she heard that. "Sis Zhizhi, you think too highly of me. Do I look like someone who would spend such a long time cultivating skills? You updates tnvel/by. Com. She put up her index finger and said, "I'll tell you honestly, I only learned it for a month. In fact, this is the only song I know. It's a good thing that I've got a pretty good memory. I tried very hard to memorize every single string and note. When I first learned it, my only thought was to use it to look cool." When she heard Ningxi's answer, Ling Zhizhi blinked in surprise, then she giggled uncontrollably. "So that's the story behind the song." Ningxi nodded. "Yeah, I like to learn a little bit of everything. I like to learn many complicated things, but actually, I'm not very good at any of it. If the skills can be achieved in a short time, that's fine, but I can only touch the surface level of those skills that need years and months to cultivate." She did not have time to be cultured, her only goal was survival. From her experience in the Ning family before this, she felt like only if she could crazily learn every field and every bit of knowledge possible, then only would she feel a sense of security. Due to the upcoming perfume advertisement shoot, Ningxi needed to stay for a while in Los Angeles. Riding on this opportunity, she had something very important to do. She wanted to visit someone. Ningxi traveled to St. Bernard City, nearby Los Angeles. No one would recognize her in such an area, so she did not bother to disguise herself or even put on any makeup. She simply changed into a plain and comfortable white t-shirt and jeans. St. Bernard City had been named the most dangerous city of Country M for 5 years in a row now, where low-income groups gathered and the city was the main path of smugglers. It was deemed the most violent area in the entire country. Ningxi had to pay double the usual fare before the driver was willing to go there. In fact, he only drove till the border of both cities and dared not continue forward. He waited for Ningxi to get down from the car, then immediately sped off. Abandoned ruins proliferated the city, where most of the place was filled with short, dilapidated buildings and abandoned landfills. In the dim alleyways, black market dealings were a common sight. However, the entertainment industry there was booming. Even though it was already late at night, it was still very lively, and everywhere were the sights and sounds of drinking, games, and gambling. The pedestrians on the pavements were mostly muscled men with ferocious-looking tattoos, and they looked viciously at anyone who walked past them. The women, on the other hand, wore as little as possible to display their lithe, sexy bodies, their faces heavily lined with smoky gothic makeup. When Ningxi walked into St. Bernard's late at night dressed as innocently as a schoolgirl, she was practically a little white bunny walking among a pack of bloodthirsty wolves. By the roadside, a pair of watchful eyes evaluated the stranger who had suddenly walked into their territory. Up-to-date OVLS on OVL-bin.cm. In Ningxi's mouth was a lollipop and she had her earphones on. She walked through the alleys nonchalantly as if she was walking on a normal, safe pavement. Because of how carefree she looked like she belonged to the neighborhood. The eyes that watched her were merely evaluating and no one actually went up to her to find fault. After all, if she dared appear so late at night like this in St. Bernard, even if she was really just a child, she would definitely not be someone normal. She probably had a lot of strength behind her, and the tiniest of conflicts would turn deadly for whoever took her on. She walked through a maze of complicated slums, then her view of the area surrounding her started to expand. She was not far from the town center, and the nearer she approached the central region, the more modern it was. That was where St. Bernard's most respected figure lived. With only a year apart since she last went there, the changes were not terribly significant. Based on her memory, Ningxi soon reached a building that stood independently of the others. This building was surrounded by a thick-set jungle. It looks dark, as if it was the witch's palace in a fairy tale world. The building was dark with no lights turned on. Could they be sleeping? Or was the owner not around? Ningxi pushed the courtyard gate open to reach the building door and she rang the doorbell. The ringing in the still night was extremely abrupt. She waited for a while but there was no response at all. She rang another 2 times, but it was quiet inside and no one opened the door. Ningxi scratched her head, then looked at the flower pots under the windows and counted the third pot. Then, she felt for the keys from beneath the third pot. Hey, this standard of hiding the keys really never changed. When she retrieved the keys, Ningxi unlocked the door to enter. She found the house lights to switch them on, then walked up and down the entire house to look. Indeed, he was not home. Ningxi looked at the time on her phone, then sat down on the sofa in the living room. She decided to just wait there until the owner returned. In the cold house, Ningxi waited for quite a long time, but the owner still had not returned. After a while, Ningxi got up and was attracted by the cartoon figures on the table. Her curious eyes evaluated the cartoon figures, then she smiled. That person still had not changed much, just like living in a two-dimensional world. But, these are pretty exquisite. Ningxi picked up a figure and played with it for a while to kill some time while waiting. The figure was very lovely. Every millimeter of it seemed like it had been refined to detail, and the style of the character was special, with an arrogant yet lazy posture, both hands holding 2 very realistic-looking guns. I have 2 guns. When Ningxi accidentally touched a subtle switch on the figure, the cartoon figure suddenly spoke. Ningxi was caught off guard and was frightened by this, subconsciously letting go of the figure in her hand. I have 2 guns, one is called Shoot. And the other is called Aw. When she heard the cartoon figure that she had thrown to the floor still continue to call out, Ningxi returned to her senses and shook her head to get a grip on herself. She suddenly remembered that the owner was once crazily obsessed with an esports battling game, and these cartoon figures were the main characters of that game. Even the dialogues of the characters were exactly the same. She wondered what other people would think if they knew that this fearsome man who was notorious in the underground world had such a cute side. When the cartoon figure had finally finished its dialogue, the house went into dead silence again. Ningxi's mouth twitched and she slowly walked up to pick the cartoon figure up. If they saw how she had treated their beloved figure, Ningxi shuddered to imagine the consequences. She dared not think any more about it. Just as she thought about retrieving the figure, Ningxi's eyes skimmed the lower floor and noticed that the doorknob was slowly turning. Ningxi was joyful, but within a few seconds, the smile froze on her face and left very quickly. Initially, she thought that the person she had been waiting for had returned, but when she looked closely, it was not him. The doorknob continued to turn. It did not look like the owner had returned, but rather it was robbers breaking in. In a place like St. Bernard's, robbers were aplenty, to the extent that it was commonplace for them to rob and kill in broad daylight. Especially in places where the wealthy lived, these deadly thieves were very active. Ningxi did not hesitate and immediately walked back to put the cartoon figure onto the shelf again. Then, she opened the drawer. Indeed, he is still the same. Ningxi mumbled to herself, her gaze falling onto the black pistol lying unassumingly in the drawer. German pistol, it really is their style, Ningxi murmured as she took the gun out and quickly loaded it with 10 bullets. In this city, even if those thieves had brought a lot of guns with them, even if they were skilled at combat and were fast, they could not be faster than a gun. As she loaded the bullets, a sound came from below. Ningxi frowned and looked down. The/W novel chapters are published on no/vel/bin.co/m. She saw that below her were 6 men in black slowly walking into the house silently. Whether it was the way they held their guns or the way they acted, it seemed like they had professional training and were not common thieves. Unless, they aren't robbers? Ningxi was even more suspicious. If they were really robbers, did they really need 6 guns for 6 of them? And they seemed to be dressed in uniforms. Ignoring the professional training they seemed to have, these robbers wore expensive-looking Chinese apparel. In a place like St. Bernard, would there ever be a robbery team of people who wore expensive Chinese apparel and have professional training? It did not matter whether anyone else would believe it, but Ningxi had a hard time fathoming it. The 6 armed men below continued to sign to one another in the still darkness, and they looked around with hawk eyes to examine the entire building. Very quickly, the first floor had been scoured by them. They probably could not find what they were looking for. Then, the leader pointed his index finger upwards at the second floor. When they saw that, the other men nodded in understanding and followed after their leader. They walked stealthily towards the second floor. Little did they know that from the moment they had walked in, their every move was being watched by a certain girl. At this moment, Ningxi thoroughly understood that this group of well-trained men were definitely not common robbers. If she guessed correctly, it was the enemies of that particular person. They had come to seek revenge now, neither for money nor for a woman, but for life. Unfortunately, that person was not at home, and instead, she would have to innocently take the shot now. Damn it, why does it always turn out like this? Ningxi gritted her teeth. She had faced a similar situation twice before, making today the 3rd time. What a charm! That person's enemies were really all over the world. They probably had to deal with revenge seekers from time to time. Ningxi returned to the room and thought quickly. Then, she instantly picked up the cute cartoon figure and flicked the switch on before throwing it down the stairs. The leader went trigger happy. It didn't take long for the cartoon figure's bottom half to be shot beyond recognition. The other half of the cartoon figure fell carelessly among the men. "Oh, you're shot, it really hurt my feelings," the cartoon figure started to say. The men looked suspiciously at the cartoon figure that had been shot into half. At that moment, the cartoon figure continued, "Bro, did you grow up in the crematorium where they sell barbecue? This will be a massacre. Let's get some magic going first, how about that?" Damn it! The lead man scowled, then viciously crushed the figure that would not stop talking into pieces. At the same time, Ningxi's body flashed across the void. Ningxi's eyes were sharp as an eagle's and cold as ice. It almost seemed like she had become a whole different person. Anyone who did not know her well enough would definitely be shocked to see her now. The Ningxi right now was like the Ningxi from a few years ago. Her steely eyes held no fear of complicated emotions, but only precise calculations. Bam! When Ningxi fired the first shot, a loud sound rang across the entire building, and the lead man's miserable scream was heard. His breathing turned rapid as his body retreated backwards to avoid the attack. However, his attempts were as feeble as wet mud collapsing pathetically. Ningxi's shot had hit him right in the heart. The other 5 men watched on in horror and did not even care about their leader who was shot. Instead, they separated to look for cover. At the same time, gunfire blasted another 3 times. Before the 5 men could find a place for cover, Ningxi continued to pull the trigger thrice from the second floor. Bam! 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 The gunshots rang out, as if confirming the end of the lives of 3 unfortunate souls. At the same time, 3 men on the lower ground had collapsed on the floor, and their blood soon turned the floor into a bright carmine color. Outside the house, many locals quickly shut their doors and windows tight. If such a thing had happened elsewhere, panic would have ensued. But this was St. Bernard's, and they were used to it. After all, St. Bernard's was impressive for its crime rate. At this moment, only 2 armed men were left standing in the house, and they had both found a good cover. The 2 guys had calmed down from their earlier panic of being caught off guard. They were well-trained assassins after all. Even if one of them was the last man standing, he would not act like a headless chicken. Upto.dfrm no/v/e/lb I n.co/m. Ningxi took the chance to fire a couple of shots and then decided to temporarily hide in the room. How could they not be back yet? Ningxi took a deep breath. She had already left the dark underground world for a long time, and this sudden incident was a little hard for her to adapt to instantly. Nevertheless, at least her earlier actions were all within her precise calculations, and she managed to get rid of 4 people. To be honest, Ningxi understood clearly in her heart that she had to thank that special cartoon figures, or else, she might not have even noticed the well-trained assassins breaking in. If that was so, had she not, the consequences would be unimaginable. Now, there were 2 more assassins left. For Ningxi, they should not be too much of a problem. Very quickly, Ningxi found the main control panel of the building and chose to turn it off. Instantly, the house turned pitch black, as if they were in the darkest peak of the night. The entire world seemed as if it had fallen into a deafening silence. There was not a single sound. The 2 remaining men below were very careful too. They chose not to make a move immediately, but quietly waited for their chance instead. Several days before, they received this assassination mission and were already prepared to fail. After all, their assassination target had a reputation within their circle. The temptation of money had done them in. They knew that there was a tiger within this mountain, and yet they had walked right in. It was too late to regret now that their presence had already been noticed by that person. The chances of escaping from that person's hands was practically nil, so they could only fight with their lives. Maybe there was a ray of hope to leave alive. Cold sweat soaked the 2 men's entire bodies, but they did not have any anxiety or worry on their faces. Well-trained professional assassins were prepared for such situations. Every day, they walked the borders of St. Bernard's and practically smeared blood on their knives to make sales with their brains. A situation like today's had happened to them countless of times before. Looking on from the 2nd floor, Ningxi did not make any moves either. Before this, she had some luck as an advantage, but now, the remaining 2 assassins were already much more alert. A moment later, Ningxi took the broken cartoon figure from the table and switched it on, then threw it to the floor. She had to say that the cartoon figure seemed to be a high-quality customized one. Even if it were thrown down from the 2nd floor, it did not break easily. Ahahaha, I think you guys are aunties. Suddenly, the dead silence was disrupted by the sound of the cartoon figure's insults echoing throughout the building. Ahahaha, I think you guys are aunties. You're such fragile beings, broken by a single touch. As the cartoon figure's ridicule rang, the 2 assassins were stunned for a moment, but they still kept their patience and did not make a move. Idiots, this is a place that even the gods dare not step foot in. You have come looking for your own deaths instead. The cartoon figure's voice was sometimes male, sometimes female, sometimes mellow and sometimes loud, and sometimes it would pass through clearly. FIDDEU UPTS on NOV/E/LN.com. With just $998, I could let you guys feel so good that you can't breathe. That's weird, I feel like shooting something. I have 2 guns, one is called shoot, one is called aw. What's that thing dripping out? The figure kept spouting out annoying insults and Ningxi smiled from the 2nd floor. Even though the dialogues came from a game, listening to the figure alone continuously felt weird, very weird. After the cartoon figure rambled on for a few minutes, one of the assassins could not handle it anymore. The ramblings from the toy were too annoying and caused them not to be able to focus on thinking about the best strategy. The man initially wanted to signal to the other guy, but because the house was plunged into complete darkness, apart from the cartoon figure that emitted a dim light, they were left blind. Damn it, I knew I should have brought my night vision glasses, the man scolded himself silently, holding his right arm out carefully to shoot the cartoon figure. Bam! A gun fired, and what came after was the painful cry of the man. He did not even have the chance to pull the trigger. The shot had come from the 2nd floor and hit him accurately on his right hand. Their cries, how weird, the cartoon figure continued. On the 2nd floor, Ningxi found the night vision glasses. She had to admit that the owner of the house was well equipped indeed. Apart from not having heavier firearms, everything else was complete. At this moment, the injured man fell to the floor and half his body was immediately exposed in the open. With the night vision glasses, she had no barriers at all. Invisibility is the deadliest power. With the cartoon figure's narration, Ningxi once again fired a shot with flawless precision. She immediately extinguished the life of the man who had been moaning, and the cries suddenly stopped. "And you, young man, you need a few shots?" The cartoon figure's words reached the final assassin's ears and gave him a chill as though the words were meant just for him. "Oh, my big knife has long been thirsty." The last assassin had a vicious look in his eyes as he raised the gun towards the second floor and shot numerous times. However, without the night vision glasses, he could only fire blindly. Ningxi was practically unthreatened by him. "Gun skills ain't bad, but if you want to hit her, you'd have to wait for the next time," the cartoon figure taunted. "You remind me of my family's best milking cow. I'd like to introduce that cow to you." "Damn this bloody prank." The assassin finally let the anger and fear get the best of him and he lost his rationality as he shot towards the direction of the second floor again. This time, Ningxi was already prepared. Just as the assassin was getting into position to make the shot, Ningxi chose the perfect timing to pull the trigger with her agility and precision. Someone as handsome as I am would usually be the main character in other games. The final dialogue of the cartoon figure was the curtain call for the black-clothed assassin as he fell to the floor and took his last breath. Since she did not know if the assassins had called for backup, she kept the lights turned off. With her night vision glasses on, she walked down the stairs carefully. She looked through the dead assassin's belongings to find more information about their identity. "B rank." Ningxi mumbled in surprise. These people were B-rank assassins from a group called the Sins. The history of the Sins traced way back to the end of the Middle Ages. It was a universally known rank of assassins whose existence rose to the peak during the last World War. Explore Todd T. stories at no/l//bin.cm. Aside from being the forces behind powerful families, some small countries hired top assassins from the Sins as well. One exists as the Sin. The Sin exists to destroy. The world is full of sin, humiliating worldly desires. How pathetic. One shall use the power of the Sin to destroy the world. These words were known as the holiest Bible of the Sins. B-class assassins belong to the average category among the Sins, only bested by the A-class. "Haha, the person who hired B-class assassins to kill that person," said Ningxi as she shook her head. They were all trying to get themselves killed. The Sins wasn't some killer organization with a complete system. It was just a list and all the world-class assassins were listed on it. One could look up the rank of the assassin on the Sins before hiring them. Ningxi was having doubts about the person who had hired B-class assassins to kill that owner of the house. Someone as handsome as I am is usually the main character in games. The cartoon figurine that had been thrown to the first floor started laughing, baring its teeth and giving a thumbs up as well. Ningxi smiled and picked up the figurine. "You must be my lucky charm, thank you. I'm super duper cool." To which Ningxi replied, I doubt so. It's time to show you my real skills." Ningxi replied again, "Didn't you already show me just now?" "Young man, hurry, there are still treasures yet to be discovered." In the end, Ningxi turned off the switch on the cartoon figurine and it finally stopped blabbering. Right after she had kept the figurine on her, she heard irregular footsteps from outside the house. Ningxi quickly hid under the windows and tried to peek outside. There were a few men waiting outside and were looking inside the house from time to time. These people weren't assassins from the Sins, their irregular footsteps gave them away. Suddenly, a phone rang in the pocket of the man who had led the assassins. Ningxi swiftly went up to his body and took out his phone. A text message came in from the sender Jeffrey, saying, "Did you get it?" Ningxi thought for a while, then replied with the man's phone, "Done, but we almost lost our lives this time." The phone rang again a while after. "Haha, thanks for your hard work. I'll be adding some extra to your reward. I'll have my people retreat first as they have something else on their hands." Ningxi turned off the phone and thought that the people outside were the men Jeffrey had been talking about. Ningxi left the house to tail them not long after they had left. Instead of just waiting in the house, she wanted to try to find out who was this Jeffrey who hired B-class assassins to kill that person. Explore new levels on nvelby.com. Ningxi equipped herself with her lucky charm and she tailed the group of foreigners stealthily. They arrived at a villa guarded by a few men in a remote area half an hour later. Could this Jeffrey be the villa's owner? Ningxi mumbled to herself. If this was their main headquarters, she would be better off staying put for now. As Ningxi prepared to leave, she saw a man around 50 years of age getting chased out of the villa and being pushed to the ground. You bastards, this is my house. You can't do this to me. You just can't," the middle-aged man roared in agony, his eyes full of hatred. "Hey, who do you think you are? You might not even see daybreak tomorrow, you idiot." "Oh, my dear Lu, it's been rainy these days, how would he even see the sun?" "Idiots, it's a joke. You don't get my sense of humor. Get out of my house now," the middle-aged man shouted as he struggled to get up from the ground while pointing at those people. "You damned old man, get lost." A young man slapped the middle-aged man's right cheek heavily. The middle-aged man fell down again. "Pa. I'm going to trample you to death." A few young men started kicking the middle-aged man on the floor while using all kinds of profanity to curse him. As they were attacking the middle-aged man, Ningxi had already sneaked into the villa. She then realized that it was just an ordinary villa and not where Jeffrey was. After searching, she exited the villa from the main door. "You old man, I'm taking your head off today. Do you actually think that you could get through the night? Ha ha ha. The boss told us to snuff your life out. Lu, where's his dog? Let me do it. Bastard, you watch too many movies. You're just looking for trouble now," laughed the young man named Lu. Ha ha ha. They suddenly saw a lady step out of the villa. Lu's men were confused. Who was this woman and why was she in the villa? "You. Lady." "Yes, I'm talking to you, don't look anywhere else. Look at me." Lu stopped kicking the middle-aged man and blocked Ningxi's path. Ningxi stood there expressionless. "Who are you and why would you be in the villa in the first place?" Lu asked as he assessed Ningxi, and when he saw her adorable face, he smiled maliciously. "Is this your house?" Ningxi asked him instead. "What did you say?" Lu's expression changed. No one had ever talked to him in such a tone. "Lady, I'm Solomon's new boss, Jeffrey's brother. Lu, don't you know who I am? If you don't, I can tell you in detail in bed with me tonight," Lu said fiercely. Ningxi was a little surprised by the man's words. So he was Jeffrey's younger brother. In the blink of an eye, the woman elbowed his face and he was scowled unhappily. "What did you say earlier?" "I didn't hear it clearly," Ningxi asked Lu, who was moaning in pain. You witch, you dare to hit me?" Lu covered his swollen face and glared at Ningxi. He then yelled at the people behind him, "Kill her! She's mine to bed tonight." Everyone sprung into action with Lu's roar, after being momentarily mesmerized by how swiftly Ningxi's perfect elbow attack had taken the tough Lu down. "Lu, So do you want to kill her, or do you want to sleep with her? Can you still sleep with her if she's dead? One of the bald men asked in confusion. Damn you, Barty! Get on it now! Lu yelled angrily. Barty and his men surrounded Ningxi. Wait. Ningxi shook her head. Little miss, are you trying to beg for forgiveness? Barty yelled at her. Ningxi went to the side and picked up a few steel bars to give them to the people in front of her. Ningxi left them dumbfounded and confused. Okay, come at me. Ningxi clapped her hands and nodded with satisfaction. How boring if the opponents were too weak compared to her, much better now. Read latest chapters at n/velbi.co/m. Damn it, you're going to die. You witch, are you looking down on us? Ningxi was obviously provoking them, especially since they were elite members from the Solomon Group. They would not let her get away with this. Of course, the title of elite member was self-appointed. Under the leadership of the bald man, they started attacking Ningxi with the steel bars. Don't hit her too hard. I'm still going to sleep with her later and I don't want her performance to be affected. And don't hit her face. Lu yelled at them while looking after the middle-aged man. Right after he yelled at them, Ningxi gave Barty a powerful kick and he fell beside Lu, moaning in agony. Like lined-up dominoes, they all went down one by one, defeated by Ningxi. The steel bars were all lying haphazardly on the floor. Damn it, who is this woman? She's powerful, the bald man gasped in fear. Shoot her. Barty, kill her with your gun. Lu noticed something was wrong and instructed Barty to take out the threat. Only Barty had a gun. Although Lu was Jeffrey's brother, he still did not have any say in this matter. Barty quickly took out his gun and aimed it at Ningxi. Ningxi was calm despite having a gun pointing at her. In her pocket, her hand was already grasped around her gun. She was confident that she could kill the bald man first if he did fire at her. Shoot her, Barty, you idiot! Lu yelled at him for not firing at her. The bald man was embarrassed and answered him, We're done for. I've always been afraid that I might lose the gun in a fight, so I never loaded bullets in them. Lu's men were all dumbfounded by this statement and Ningxi almost laughed out loud. An unloaded gun? Lu launched into a tirade and cursed Baldy endlessly. Lu, I'm still the leader for our team and I have my pride as leader. How can I expect any respect from my team if you are always scolding me? Barty stared at Locke, his mouth curled downwards. Screw your pride. Lu kicked Barty. Barty backed off and fell into a punching stance. Before Lu could react, he threw a punch and hit Lu's jaw. I cannot stand you anymore, Lu. Now see for yourself what I can do. Seeing Barty's counterattack, the middle-aged man quickly got up from the floor and started hitting Lu as well. The others wanted to help Lu but Ningxi knocked them out with her strike of her knife-armed hand. Hey, Lu! Check out my combo punches. Barty threw his punches swiftly like rain droplets splattering onto Lu's face. A while later, Lu's face was swollen and badly bruised. Ha! Barty shouted and unleashed his final attack, gesturing like a boxing champion. He held both his hands up high and did a victory dance, pumping both hands up and down while chanting, Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Ningxi snatched his gun away while he was celebrating his victory against Lu. Barty looked at Ningxi and his triumphant look soon faded. It's really not loaded. Ningxi laughed awkwardly, finding the bald Barty very interesting. My dear savior. I'm Zeus. Thank you for saving me, the middle-aged man said in excitement. I'm the boss of Solomon and I was betrayed by my second-in-command, Jeffrey. If it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't live to see tomorrow. Hey, To the most useless boss in history, midnight has just passed. You wouldn't have lived till today without her, Barty told him seriously. Ningxi was speechless as she did not expect that she would accidentally save a gang leader. Read latest OVLS at nv/e/l/buy.com. It was probably because the boss and his henchmen were so useless that she had thought that this unheard gang was just a group of people fooling around. She only found out some time later how big of an influence the Solomon had, and that the middle-aged Zeus in front of her was one of the weakest leaders amongst all of the previous bosses. However, currently Ningxi was focused on the safety of a particular person, so she quickly told them, "You guys, bring me to Jeffrey. Jeffrey is ruthless. Going to him now is like looking for your own death." Barty shook his head. Ningxi shot him a threatening stare and he quickly said, "I think you'll be fine though. I'll bring you there." Zeus thought for a while and said, "I know of a shortcut that can reach directly into the heart of his base, follow me." They reached a manor in the outskirts half an hour later. Apparently, Jeffrey was here. That's weird, no one's guarding the area. Could it be a trap? Zeus doubted. Ningxi did not give it much thought and she went straight inside the manor. She was not sure if the person that Jeffrey sent assassins to kill was safe, and where that person was. Inside the big manor, there were 13 armed muscular men patrolling around. As Ningxi was coming up with a plan, an odd sound came from above. A helicopter appeared on top of the manor. All the armed men in the manor were on alert. As she looked from afar, Ningxi saw a voluptuous woman with brown-colored hair in a tight black suit. The woman used a rope to disembark the helicopter. Ningxi was surprised to see the woman as she did not expect that the person she had been waiting for all night long would make her entry in such a grand way. Third. Just as Ningxi wanted to yell out and start running towards the woman, she saw a few heavily armed men leaving the helicopter as well. Ningxi quickly shouted at Barty and the useless boss Zeus, "Run!" The moment they reached a safe place, the air was filled with sounds of machine guns rattling and people screaming. Ningxi hid in the shadows and sweat poured off her. If she had reacted even a second later, she would have died. The scene was dead silent 10 minutes later. Needless to say, Jeffrey and his men were all dead. Barty and the useless boss were in deep shock. Had it not been for Ningxi, they would have been long dead. After the sound of gunshots had faded, Ningxi could not help but run towards the woman. Before she could give her a hug, a strong punch welcomed her. Ningxi evaded the deadly punch with a back handspring. More and more attacks came after the punch, not giving her any time to catch her breath. Through their exchange of attacks, Ningxi did not have any chance to counter them. She could only defend and evade the whole time. The opponent stepped up her game. All new chapters NNV.com. She was still just testing Ningxi earlier, but now she wanted to end her life with every strike, attacking her with even fiercer attacks. Ningxi was in an awkward position as she wanted to speak a few times, but there were no openings at all. If she lost focus even for a brief moment, it would cost her fatal consequences. After a long while, Ningxi had reached her physical strength limit and her shoulder was hit by a powerful fist, causing it to flare in pain. A minute later, the opponent was choking her throat and it felt like her neck was about to break. At that moment Ningxi quickly yelled, "Third senior sister." The opponent released her grip when she heard Ningxi's voice. The woman was being doubtful. "Who are you?" "Me. It's me. I'm Xiao Shi." "Xiao Shi?" The woman released her instantly. When Ningxi finally could catch her breath, she bent over and coughed, "Third senior sister, you're brutal. I haven't seen you for so long and the first thing you do is try to kill me." The woman was surprised by Ningxi's appearance and her cold expression turned into excitement and joy as she hugged Ningxi tightly. "Oh my. Xiao Shi. You're really Xiao Shi. I couldn't recognize you in a girl's outfit. Oh, my Xiao Shi, you're so cute in a girl's outfit. How adorable, let me hug you. Cough, sis, I'm getting suffocated by your boobs. Although it might be the dream of many men, but I don't want to die yet. That's mean, you little kid. The woman let her and shyly said, Oops, I mean little girl. I was just thinking who it was that dared to attack me from behind. I didn't expect it to be you. Third senior sister, even if you couldn't recognize me just now, aren't you familiar with my fighting style? Ningxi asked. The way you evaded me was quite familiar, but how would I know you were one of us? I don't recall anyone that sucked so badly, the woman said as a matter of factly. Ningxi had nothing to defend herself with, so she whined, Senior sister, can't you be a bit more considerate? You cheeky little girl, what's up with you? Even though you sucked back then, you could still hold your ground for quite some time against me, but now you can't even last for a while. Your posture's bad and your knees are weak. You haven't been training in the past year, have you? If Master knew about this, your leg would have been broken by now. Feng Xiaoxiao scolded her. Ningxi touched her nose and said sadly, I'm too busy, there's no time. A handsome, tall man from Feng Xiaoxiao's team walked over and stared at Ningxi with interest. Hey, Xiaoxiao, who's this little bunny? Feng Xiaoxiao kicked him, get lost. You're the bunny. This is my junior sister. Don't you dare have any funny ideas or I'll break your third leg. The man quickly ran away while covering his crotch. Feng Xiaoxiao gave them a threatening stare and then returned to the conversation with Ningxi. So, how has it been going? Is it fun being a celebrity? It's pretty interesting. You can act as a side character next time. Ningxi smiled brightly at her. Feng Xiaoxiao brushed her hair. You little fella, you always have so little patience. One day, you're doing this and another day you're doing that. When you said that you were going into acting, I thought you were just being curious and would be back after a few days. Who knew that you'd leave for a whole year? I was afraid that I wouldn't leave you if I saw you. Ningxi smiled cheekily. Feng Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes, then asked her, Right, I haven't asked you yet, but why are you here? Ningxi sighed, It's a long story. I was waiting for you at your home, but coincidentally there was someone there to assassinate you and I was worried about you. After I settled them, I followed the henchmen and eventually I got here, saw you and you almost killed me. Feng Xiaoxiao quickly gave her another tight hug. She asked her while patting her head, Is there anything urgent that you need me for? Ningxi took her to a quiet corner before she continued, Third senior sister, I need a favor from you, please help me. What is it? I'll surely help you. The source of this content n/o/v/l/n. Senior sister, can you help me find out more about a person? Find a person? Easy. No matter who it is, I'll get you everything you need about that person. Satan. Who? I said, I need information on Satan. Feng Xiaoxiao reluctantly broke the promise she just made. I can't. Ningxi begged her, Third senior sister, please. Only you can help me now. Feng Xiaoxiao's expression darkened. Why do you want to know so much about that person? I just need it. Ningxi continued begging. Feng Xiaoxiao held her temples in frustration. It's not that I don't want to help you, but I can't do anything about it. If you really want to know, why not ask him personally? Would I still need your help if I could ask him directly? Then go and ask your first senior brother. Feng Xiaoxiao wanted to push the burden away. He would never tell me. Third senior sister, please. Help me. I know you love me the most. Ning Shi begged persistently. Feng Xiaoxiao could not stand it anymore. Damn it, where did you learn to act this way? Did your personality change along with your outfit as well? No wonder you insisted on not wearing a girl's outfit the last time. If those dudes from your organization see this, they'd have eaten you alive. I'm only doing this for you, third senior sister. Feng Xiaoxiao was helpless. Fine, my loss, I'll help you on this, but don't get your hopes up. You know how secretive this person's background is. Besides, you need to give me a lead to start with. Ning Shi thought for a while and wrote 3 words on Feng Xiaoxiao's palm with her finger. Feng Xiaoxiao's brows raised. Lu Tingxiao, the powerful business overlord in China? Ning Shi nodded. Yes, I want to know if he has any relationship with Satan. Why would the both of them be related? And what's your relationship to Lu Tingxiao? Feng Xiaoxiao was doubtful. Ning Shi carefully phrased her words. Not much. The company I'm affiliated with now is under the Lu Corporation and he's my boss. That's all? Feng Xiaoxiao squinted her eyes, not believing Ning Shi at all. A voice came through from afar. Xiaoxiao. We need to go now. Say goodbye to your little bunny. Feng Xiaoxiao looked a little sad. I'm sorry, my dear, I have to go now. Ning Shi was not all that happy as well. Be careful. Oh, right. There's another important thing. Wait. As Feng Xiaoxiao entered the plane, she took out her phone and snapped a picture of Ning Shi. Ha 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 ha, little junior sister in a girl's outfit. I'm going to show the seniors. Ning Shi was speechless. It was just a girl's outfit. Leader Barty and the useless boss of Solomon Zeus only came out after Feng Xiaoxiao's bunch had left. You know that woman? Barty had fear written all over his face. Zeus was really shocked as well and said, You called her your third senior sister. If I'm not wrong, that woman is one of the A-class assassins on the sin list. Mission accomplished. She had no more reason to stay here and she had had enough of what had happened tonight. She left immediately, ignoring the both of them. Zeus quickly went up and shouted, Boss. Boss, where are you going? Ning Shi was shocked and almost fell down. Who are you calling boss? You, of course. Huh? Zeus knelt down on one knee and said in a serious tone, Thank you for saving me and killing Jeffrey. Solomon praises the strong ones, only you're worthy to be Solomon's new boss. Funny how he could say that they praised the strong ones. Ning Shi let out a yawn. Sorry, not interested. She did not care what Zeus said afterward and she left, waving her hands. Back at the hotel where she stayed, Ning Shi lay on the bed after a shower. While she felt tired, she could not sleep at all. Tonight reminded her of Guns and Blood, and she felt fearful that she might not have left her old ways of living. Ning Shi brushed her hair and sat up to check the time on her phone. It should be daytime in China now. She opened her messenger and sent Cabbage Lu a message. Boss, I got the endorsement for Noble Perfume. 7 sit envelb/n. C/M for L test vels. As she wanted to put the phone down, a text message returned almost instantly. Congratulations. Ning Shi felt as if she had returned to the human world after she saw the message. Another message came through again. Have you not slept or are you up too early? Ning Shi dared not admit that she had not slept for the whole night, so she sent, I'm just up early, we'll be going to the studio to discuss some details with the director. When are you coming back? Ning Shi reported genuinely, if things go well, the work will be done in 2 days and after that, I want to go shopping, so I'll be back about 3 days later. Sis Gigi had something urgent to do so she'll leave first the day after tomorrow. Okay. All the best. Ning Shi felt a little sleepy after messaging Lu Tingxiao. She dozed off before work started. at a 5-star hotel in Los Angeles. Li Yueling was furious early in the morning and she yelled, "I don't care anymore. You're my manager, so you should fix this. Are you trying to embarrass me? I've already told Xuelua I got the endorsement." The manager said helplessly, "Yueling, I've been utilizing all my networks and doing all I could since they released the result. Cook isn't just the director of this advertisement, he is also currently the art director of Noble. The endorsement is totally up to him, there's nothing I can do. Why don't you contact Cook directly? It doesn't matter how much money he wants. Visit novelbin.c.m for updates." The manager quickly advised, "Don't be reckless, Yueling. Do you think I haven't thought about this? Things are different here. These foreigners don't care about money, especially an art enthusiast like Cook. I've asked his assistant. He's been completely charmed by Ningxi, she's his goddess muse. It's impossible to change his mind unless..." "Unless what?" Li Yueling quickly asked. "Unless you can be an ideal model compared to Ningxi in his eyes." The manager was telling the truth, but she had touched a fresh wound, so Li Yueling exploded, "If I can do it, then what would I still need you for? Useless! Idiot! You can't even settle something like this. This is why Ling Zhizhi is always above of you." The manager was really unhappy, thinking that she had been below Ling Zhizhi all this time because of Li Yueling's lack of ability. After investing so much money and resources, she still could not even win a presentable award. Suddenly the doorbell rang. The manager opened the door, surprised to see who it was. "Ms. Ning? Why are you here?" "What? Xuelua is here?" Li Yueling quickly went to the door and was surprised to see Ning Xuelua standing outside. "Xuelua, why are you here? Come in." Ning Xuelua sat down on the sofa, then looked at Li Yueling. "I've already heard about the Noble endorsement." Li Yueling's expression froze. "I'm sorry, Xuelua, I messed up the opportunity that you gave me." Ning Xuelua signaled for Li Yueling to sit beside her and comforted, "Don't blame yourself, Yueling, it's not your fault. You didn't want this to happen." Li Yueling looked at her and Xuelua and thought of something. "Xuelua, why don't you go and talk to Director Cook? You gave up the auditions for me, but since things went south, we can't just let Ningxi have the advantage. You can surely defeat her with your talent." Ning Xuelua said numbly, "It's not just about talent. Ningxi loves to use dirty tricks and innocent ladies like us don't stand a chance against her. It was all my fault. If I had known Ningxi would join the audition beforehand, I could have reminded you to be more careful." Actually, Ning Xuelua did not even get through the initial audition and she had lied in order not to embarrass herself. On a side note, she could get Li Yueling on her side by doing her a favor, striking 2 birds with 1 stone. If she went up to Cook now, she would find out about her elimination in the initial phase of the audition. Li Yueling did not notice anything odd about Ning Xuelua, so she continued to complain, "I knew that she must have used some dirty tricks, I almost thought that I really lost to her. What should I do now, Xuelua? I'm too embarrassed to go back." Ning Xuelua gave it some thought and said, "Noble has already announced the results and it's impossible to change that now, but we can minimize the spread of the news. This audition happened in a foreign country, so not many people know about it. If we pull some strings, they might not tell the whole world. And it wasn't just you who are embarrassed. In fact, all of them are far more experienced than Ningxi and yet they still lost to her." Li Yueling had a moment of realization. "You're right. So just relax, you're on the same side as them." Coincidentally, History has just opened a headquarters in Los Angeles. We'll invite all of them over tomorrow and buy them some dresses there. After some bonding and hints, they'd surely understand. The manager spoke up as well. That's a good idea. History is quite popular among the entertainment circle recently, and many celebrities will be proud to own a dress designed by the lead designer David. Li Yueling held Ning Xuelua's arms intimately and flattered. Of course, Xuelua, you have great taste and you picked that designer to set up a brand for him and make him popular. I was just lucky, Ning Xuelua said humbly. On the third day since Ning Shi came to Los Angeles, Noble's advertisement shoot ended without a hitch and she was going home tomorrow. Her endorsement fees amounted to $3 million, 10 times more than what she had received the last time. It felt awesome to get rich overnight. Finally, she could buy whatever she wanted. A not lesser-known brand that Ning Shi liked, Neon, had been bought over recently and changed their name to History. It seemed that its popularity was rising and it had gotten a lot of attention in the entertainment field, with many celebrities and socialites loving it. She felt a little sad that suddenly everyone knew about the treasure that used to be only known by a few, but of course, she felt happy for the brand itself. As the brand had progressed, more classic designs were made. She heard that History had opened a shop in Los Angeles and had a lot of pieces that were not available back home, so she wanted to take a look. Ning Shi felt refreshed stepping into the store. There were a lot of designs that were not available back home and all of them piqued her interest. What was regrettable was that the prices were almost tenfold to how much it had cost before. Miss, see anything that you like? Try them on. You can only see how it really looks when you try it on yourself, the salesperson told Ning Shi. 7 sit n / dot. C/M for L test vels. I'll look around for a while. All of them look gorgeous. The salesperson smiled. Miss, are you from China? Yes. I think that although our brand is popular in Western countries, only a Chinese can bring out the real potential of the designs. After all, it was made by a Chinese designer. You look really pretty and you have a unique aura. Most of our garments would suit you very well. I've always been a fan of this brand even before it was named History. Ning Shi tried on 10 different outfits and loved every one of them. In the end, she generously bought all of them. As expected, the best solution when faced with a dilemma with too many choices was to be rich. By being decisive and buying them all, then one need not be burdened by having to just choose one. There was a retro-themed dress with Chinese elements that Ning Shi loved it the most. She had the salesperson pack up her clothes and she immediately wore that outfit. The salesperson was glad that she got herself a big deal, so with a big smile she said, "Thank you for your patronage, please come again." Ning Shi held onto all her bags and was stepping out when she saw a big group of celebrities entering the shop with Li Yueling as the lead. The woman in a long mint green dress beside Li Yueling was Ning Xuelua. She did not see Ning Xuelua at the Noble Edition the other day, so why was she here? Suddenly, every salesperson in the shop and the manager went up to them, bowing to Ning Xuelua. "Welcome back, mistress." Ning Shi frowned a little. Mistress? Because Ning Shi was on her way out, all of them saw her at the entrance. Li Yueling saw Ning Shi holding all the bags and said, "I didn't expect that you'd like History too." Ning Xuelua went up to Ning Shi. "Ning Shi, I didn't know that you'll be here. You could have let me know beforehand so that I could have them give you a discount." Ning Shi's brows frowned even more. Was it Ning Xuelua who bought over Neon? As far as she knew, Ning Xuelua usually liked European styles and had always thought that brands with Chinese element like Neon were too tacky, so why would she suddenly invest in Neon? Ning Shi just mumbled something and left the shop. Li Yueling sneered with despise. "Even if she wore a dragon robe, it can't cover up her countryside stink." "Why do you say so?" one of the artistes asked. Li Yueling raised her brows. "Didn't you guys know that just like Feng Xiaowen, she came from a fairly remote village where people reared cows, goats, and poultry?" All the artistes were surprised. I can't believe this. Has Director Cook gone crazy? Having someone like her to endorse the renowned noble famous for its elegance? If consumers knew that the ambassador was a countryside girl, who'd still buy their products? Hee, I don't think Cook is crazy. He was just totally charmed by her. Ning Xuelua tried to settle them down. Okay, we're here to shop, let's stop talking about business. Right, Xuelua, is it really true that we can get the designer to design a dress for each and every one of us? An artiste asked with excitement. Li Yueling answered happily, of course, Xuelua owns history, so it's no big deal. Most people there were fairly influential, and no matter how popular history was, it was nothing more than a wardrobe addition. Ning Xuelua opened up again, I'm really glad that all of you pretty ladies here are willing to wear dresses from history. It's our honor, and it'll surely save me tons of advertising fees. The artistes were in a much better mood now, and one of the popular ones replied, You're too generous, Xuelua, it's true that you've got a genuinely fantastic brand. Ning Shi walked around after leaving history, intending to buy some souvenirs. She was tired halfway through, so she bought herself some snacks and sat down on one of the long chairs. Suddenly, she felt someone looking at her. Ning Shi looked up and saw an untidy beggar staring at her. It felt really odd to be eating while being stared at, so she then took out a sandwich from the paper bag and gave it to the beggar. The beggar looked at her, took the sandwich and gobbled it down quickly. Top VL updates on n/o/v/lb/in.com. Ning Shi sensed the gaze again, so she looked up and still saw the beggar there. Ning Shi then realized that he was not staring at her food, but it was more like a judgmental stare assessing her. Ning Shi was confused. What was she supposed to do? She had even given him something to eat, so what was he trying to do? Ning Shi stopped eating and walked over to him. Hey, why do you keep staring at me? I'm not staring at you. Ning Shi was surprised that he replied in Chinese. She did not expect him to be a Chinese. Ning Shi responded in Chinese as well, You've been staring at me since just now. Even at this moment. The beggar scanned her then replied, I'm looking at your outfit. Ning Shi looked at her dress and asked, What about my outfit? The beggar did not even hesitate. It's ugly. Ning Shi was speechless. Even people who had zero fashion sense would never consider this dress as ugly. Why don't you tell me which part of this dress is ugly? Ning Shi was not expecting anything constructive, but his reply was out of her expectations. The embroidery on your dress is a flower bird themed, which comes from the drawing called Rest by Lin Fengmian. It's a good drawing, but the background color is too dark. It'd be better if turquoise blue was used. They shouldn't have used silk as well, a softer fabric would have worked better. The worst part is the design around the waist. It's a misconception that the tighter the waist area, the more can one flaunt their curves. Actually, if it's a little bit looser, it would have made an enormous difference. Ning Shi saw that the beggar commented excitedly about her outfit. She looked at her outfit again, and armed with the knowledge from his comments, she thought that his words made sense. She listened patiently and prompted, Tell me more. The beggar continued with a cold tone, Most importantly, this outfit you're wearing is a half-made draft. They are deceiving the consumers by putting this on for sale. Ning Shi looked at the beggar again. How do you know all these? The beggar had really messy hair that covered most of his face, but from his voice, Ning Shi was determined that he should be around 20-odd years of age. Ning Shi felt something was off. This man was young and did not seem to be disabled either, so how did he end up as a beggar on the streets of this foreign country? When he heard Ning Shi's question, the beggar seemed to hold back. All of a sudden, he became quiet and lay on the ground, avoiding her glance. Ning Shi rubbed her chin and left. The beggar opened his eyes when he heard Ningxi's footsteps leaving, then he stared at the bags of clothes with the history logo that she left behind. After a while, he heard some footsteps approaching and he hung his head with his eyes closed before the footsteps stopped right in front of him. He rattled his bowl with some scarce change in it, but he heard a loud thump right beside him. He opened his eyes again and saw a can of beer right in front of him. The beggar sat up and quickly took the beer, almost tasting the exhilarating coolness trickling down his parched throat. He looked up and saw the girl earlier in front of him. She placed a dozen cans of beer right beside him. "What is this?" the beggar asked doubtfully. "These are on me. I have some booze for you and in exchange, you have some stories to tell," Ningxi announced brightly, putting some newspapers on the floor to sit on. The beggar opened the can of beer and gulped it down thirstily while denying, "I don't have any stories to tell." Ningxi smiled. She was patient and she believed that the booze would loosen his tongue. Ningxi was not the nosy type, but once she found something that interested her, she had to know everything about it. Eventually, the alcohol did its job and he started talking after 3 cans of beer. Ningxi waved the beer in front of his face and asked, "I'm going to ask you again. How do you know so much about this outfit? And how did you even know that it's an incomplete design?" Of course, I'd know. It's my child." The beggar spoke up. "Huh? Your child? They stole my children." "What do you mean? Who stole your children?" "History stole my neon." You even know neon? Who exactly are you? You said that history stole your neon. Are you the designer from Neon? But isn't David the designer for Neon? Ningxi was even more interested and continued to make him drink. "Come, drink more." The beggar guzzled another 2 more cans and continued, "I'm the designer for Neon, the only designer." Ningxi raised her brows in doubt and replied, "You think I'd take your word for it? If you're the designer of Neon, then I'm God." The beggar's expression darkened and he snapped, "Suit yourself." Read latest OVLS at nv/e/l/buy. Calm. Ningxi took out her phone and tapped on an album containing pictures of her wearing neon outfits. Since you said you're the only designer in Neon, let me test you. All these outfits in this album are from Neon, so you should know well enough when they were released and what series they are from then. If you really are who you say you are, then this should be a piece of cake for you." The beggar took a glance at Ningxi's album, his soulless eyes suddenly brought back to life. He started mumbling, "Wonderful, looks great, they've found themselves a worthy owner." Ningxi nodded with satisfaction. Finally, he had something nice to say. The beggar seemed sobered and refreshed after seeing those pictures. He tapped on one of them with excitement, "You have this one too?" This was from the first spring line from when Neon Studio just started out. "I still remember, the theme was endless spring." The beggar went on to say that the main element for the theme was flowers and that the handmade flowers on the outfit were made to resemble a real one as close as possible, as if it would bloom from the dress anytime, hence befitting of the theme endless spring. "I'm a die-hard fan of Neon," Ningxi told him proudly, and she started to believe that the beggar was the designer himself. The way he looked at the pictures was akin to a mother looking at her child with profound pride. There was no way he would look at them with such eyes if he was not the actual designer who had put in the effort to create those outfits. The beggar continued telling her the details of each and every outfit, including the inspiration behind each design. Sometime later, he started sobbing on the floor while holding Ningxi's phone, "My neon, my precious neon." Ningxi squatted beside him and gave him a pat on the back. "What happened? These are all your designs, but how did David become the designer?" He had kept this incident in his heart for a long time, not telling anyone what had happened, but he started to open up. "David, he was my partner, he was my classmate in university. We're really good friends and I always thought of him as a brother, the most trustworthy partner. We started the business together when we were still in university and we set up our own studio. I'm better at designing while management is his forte, so we delegated the roles and I did the designs while he handled marketing. I trusted him so I never asked him about the studio. Who'd have known that in the end, he would steal my design drafts from my computer, take all the money and abandon me while he found a sponsor and set up a new brand himself? Ningxi finally understood and she seeked confirmation, and that new brand is history? Yes. Haven't you thought of suing him? How so? We don't put the designer's name on the clothes, the only person who knew that I was Neon's designer is him, while he himself is a professional designer. Plus, his design style is very similar to mine. He destroyed all the data on the computer, so there's no proof that those drafts were my work. The man despaired. Ningxi gave it some thought and then asked, how many drafts did he steal? The man clasped his hand to his chest as if he was in pain and with red-rimmed eyes, he said, all of it. All of my drafts. Including the half-finished ones. Ningxi pointed at her temple with her finger and questioned, then, what about the ones here? What? The man was confused. Up-to-date OVLS on O-V-L bin. CM. The design drafts in your mind, did he take them away too? The man was surprised, then he replied with a bitter laugh, are you suggesting that I make a comeback? Ha, impossible, ever since he betrayed me, and I saw my Neon become history, my mind, I lost my inspiration, I can't be a designer anymore, I just know it, I'm done for. But you still have your passion, don't you? Dare you say that you have zero interest in design now? Don't you feel anything when you see those cleverly designed clothes? Don't try to deny it, you wouldn't have nitpicked on the outfit on me if you have no interest whatsoever. Definitely not to the point where you couldn't even tolerate a single flaw on it. Ningxi replied him convincingly. The man shook his head and declared, passion is useless. Being passionate only brings me suffering now. You're right, passion alone is useless. Realistically speaking, you need something else that's important, money. Are you kidding me? Do I look like I have any money on me now? Ningxi blinked her eyes and patted her chest, not you. I do. You. The man looked at her doubtfully. Ningxi slung an arm around him to support the man up and patted his shoulder, rise up, young man. Your life is just about to start. And your fate will change, starting this very second. The man looked at Ningxi like an idiot and he flopped back onto the ground. Ningxi put her hands on her hips and glared at him. What? You don't believe me? Fine, I'm telling you now. I really like your work and you know that I'm not lying, seeing how I have bought most of your designs. So here I am officially extending you an invitation to collaborate. Are you interested? The man was surprised and peered at her with bewildered eyes. Collaborate? With a beggar? Ningxi smiled and responded, yes, just take it as I have too much money and nothing to spend it on. What do you think? You've got such a silly person standing right in front of you and offering you money now. Are you going to take advantage of her? The man was dumbfounded. She sounded like she was joking, but her twinkling eyes said otherwise. The woman was serious. Why? I already told you, I'm your fan. It was a coincidence as well. I earned some money recently and felt like investing in a business and I met you here. But I have to tell you that I don't have much, it's just $3 million. I'll invest them all in you. $3 million. The man mumbled, how is that not much? We only had $50,000 in cash when we started the studio. That's fantastic if you don't think it's too little. Most importantly, you need to stand up on your own and be confident in yourself. I am an actress and I will still focus on my main career. I'm not a professional in fashion design, so you'll be the heart and soul of our studio. The studio venue, hiring, future development, they'll all be up to you. Ningxi explained to him. I. The man got up to his feet when he heard Ningxi's grand plan and said, although I've been spending most of my time designing, I still know some things about running a studio. It might be difficult at first, but if there's another chance, I can do it. Ningxi nodded in satisfaction. I'll mark your words. Are you serious? You're investing so much money in a person just because you've spoken to me for the past few minutes and shared some beers with me? The man was still in disbelief. He thought that he was dreaming or was hallucinating from the effects of the alcohol. Ningxi raised her brows and told him, you get to spend the money you earn, and you'll earn more after you finish them, no big deal. I like to take risky challenges. Ningxi was very straightforward. After their conversation, she dragged him with her and bought an outfit for him, got his hair trimmed, and brought him back to the hotel for a shower. Are you done showering yet? Remember to change into the clothes I bought you. I've thrown away what you were wearing before. And oh, right, remember to shave. Ningxi waited impatiently until the man finally walked out. Ningxi was busy playing her mobile game when she heard some careful footsteps. She looked up and was surprised. The game character from her phone shouted loudly, "Game over." The young man standing nervously in front of her wore a white blouse with light blue jeans and white sports shoes. His hair had been cropped short, revealing a clean forehead, fair skin, and a shy smile. He had told her that it was more than a year since he had graduated from university, but he still looked quite young. With what he wore, he looked as fresh as a student who had yet to leave the school gates. Ningxi stared at him for a long time, then suddenly stood up and circled the young man several times. Her face was full of utter disbelief. Wow, who knew? I thought you were a wretched uncle. Who knew that you were actually a pretty boy? Our studio won't need to hire a spokesperson in the future. You'll do. She had randomly picked up someone from the streets, who turned out to be a handsome-looking young man. What luck! The young man felt embarrassed and his face reddened further as he inquired, Boss, I still don't know what your name is. When she heard him address her as boss, Ningxi could not help but laugh. There's no need to call me boss. That's too formal. We're equal partners in this business. I'm Ningxi, you can just call me Xiaoxi. My name is Gong Shangzi, boss, I still want to call you boss. You will never know how much our fateful meeting means to me. If not for you, I would just be a walking corpse. Fine, as you wish then. Ningxi never minded such petty things, so she let him be. But this was the first time someone had ever called her boss, and it gave him a thrill of satisfaction. After all, this was a symbolic moment for her to take the first step towards her goal of reaching the peak of her life. Right, as for your studio, do you plan to open it in China or elsewhere? Ningxi asked. Let's do China, we've only just started and we're not suitable for a foreign market as of now, Gong Shangzi answered. Ningxi nodded, okay, return to China with me tomorrow then. Gong Shangzi agreed, okay. Then he paused before asking, Boss, what should our studio's name be? Ningxi scratched her head and replied, I'm useless at naming, do you have any good ideas? Boss, I think it's best that you name it. I hope that you can come up with the name. I'm fine with anything, said Gong Shangzi sincerely. Ningxi blinked. Why did she feel like she had just adopted a loyal dog? You want me to come up with the name I? Let me give it some thought. Because of Gong Xiangzi's insisting, Ningxi paced the room back and forth and thought hard. How about spirit? Inspired by Liu Yushi's quote from My Humble Home, mountains are measured not by their height, but by celestial beings, waters not by their depth, as its spirituality is with the dragons. This means that regardless of how tall a mountain is, it will be famous with celestial beings, and that it's not about how deep the waters are, but the dragons will reveal its spirituality. You're the real dragon I've invited, the treasure of our townhouse, so we can definitely defeat that little snake. When Gong Xiangzi heard Ningxi's words, his eyes instantly watered. Boss, thank you. Thank you for this meaningful name. Ningxi was nervous to see him cry and she quickly gave him a tissue. Hey, master, please don't cry, okay? What I can't stand the most is seeing people cry. Especially this dude in front of her who was as pretty as a young girl. Gong Xiangzi then turned serious and said, Boss, I won't let you down. Even if I had to squeeze myself dry, I would definitely make our brand, spirit, happen. Ningxi coughed lightly. Cough, cough, no need to squeeze yourself dry. We have to walk down a path which will continue expanding. Yes, boss. Good boy. Just as they finished chatting, Ningxi's phone rang. It was her boss, Lu Tingxiao. Hello, big boss. Did the advertisement shoot go smoothly? The gentle voice of a man asked from the other end of the line. Don't worry, everything went well. I'll be catching a flight home tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon, by the time you reach, it will be midnight already. You're alone and Ling Zhizhi is not around. I'll pick you up at the airport tomorrow. Aw. There's no need for that, I'll just get a car. Besides, I've got to run to a meeting now. You be careful on the road. See you tomorrow night. Ningxi wanted to tell him she was not alone and he had no need to worry, but Lu Tingxiao had already hung up, so she could only let it be. On the second day, Ningxi took Gong Xiangzi on the flight home. On the flight, Gong Xiangzi stared out of the window. I thought that I'd never be able to go home again in this lifetime. Ningxi leaned her head onto her hand and shook her leg. Now we're flying right back. Even if that guy has stolen many of your design drafts, he will still use them up one day, and what we have is an endless treasure chest in that mind of yours. Gong Xiangzi's initially gloominess was easily perked up just by looking at the girl who was in high spirits beside him, and he nodded. After that incident, he had hated the entire world, hated the unfairness that life doled out to him, and even hated himself. With such negative emotions roiling about in his heart, don't even talk about continuing to design, his entire being turned useless. He would never have thought that on such an ordinary afternoon, he would meet someone as miraculous as her. His coincidentally meeting her suddenly had relieved him of all hardships and unfairness. His brain, which had become dormant for far too long, suddenly became active again. Gong Xiangzi quickly took out his notebook and started to sketch speedily, recording his inspiration. Ningxi was shocked and said, you already have inspiration so soon? Find you chapters on nv/lbi.com. I suddenly thought of a theme. Gong Xiangzi said enthusiastically. As she watched the eyes of the boy beside her shine and look entirely different from before, Ningxi was stunned, then she laughed and asked, What's the theme? On the plane, Ningxi and Gong Xiangzi discussed design inspirations and the operations of the studio. They roughly decided on the blueprint for the days to come. When the plane reached China, it was already late at night. The Imperial had recently been rainy and the temperature at night was really low. As soon as Ningxi walked out of the airport, the freezing cold wind that greeted her made her sneeze. Gong Xiangzi, who noticed this, quickly took off his coat and put it on Ningxi's shoulders. Boss, careful not to fall sick. Thank you, Ningxi said gratefully. Boss, should we get a car? We shouldn't wait for a taxi out here at this hour. No need for that, someone's coming over to pick us up. Hold on, let me make a call. Ningxi said as she took out her phone from her purse. She wasn't sure whether the big boss had arrived or not. Not too far away, a black Maybach car was slowly driving over. Qing Feng, who was at the wheel, felt his hands shake non-stop. Was this a joke? He was initially happy to accompany the boss to welcome the lady boss at the airport, but why was there a strange man beside the lady boss? Wasn't this a deadly move she was making? He carefully looked at the back seat through the rearview mirror, and after a swift glance, he quickly looked to the front again. His boss had the fiercest look on his face. Gosh, scary! However, you couldn't blame the boss for being so angry. The boss had started to anticipate the day of the lady boss's return since 3 days ago and had even reminded him in advance of the time the lady boss would land. He was afraid that the lady boss was not used to eating in-flight meals, so he had supper prepared. Then, he was afraid that the weather would be too cold, so he had a blanket prepared in the car for her. He had been truly thoughtful right down to the core. For the past few days, every call from the boss would definitely be a reminder about the lady boss's arrival. It had only been a few days since they last saw each other, and with such nervousness from him, you would think they had not seen each other for years. Even Qing Feng, who had a girlfriend, felt like he wasn't being a good partner. But now... Qing Feng's eyes widened in shock when he saw the man beside the lady boss taking his coat off to put on the shoulders of the lady boss. He almost spat blood. He started to seriously consider whether he should ditch the car and escape before things went awry. Boss, do you want to continue moving forward? Qing Feng asked carefully. Most up-to-date NVELs are published on n0velgen.co/m. The seething look that turned on him instead was a clear indication that he had better not. Lu Tingxiao's ice-cold eyes shot daggers at him. Qing Feng immediately shut up and stopped asking stupid questions, just continuing to drive. Shangzi, later when my friend who's picking me up comes over, don't call me boss, just call me by my name. Ningxi reminded Gong Shangzi. She was in front of the big boss after all, and to be called boss by someone else would be a little shameless. Okay, understood. Gong Shangzi obediently answered. Because Ningxi was busy looking for her phone in her bag, she did not notice that a black car had quietly rolled up beside her. The door opened with Qing Feng alighting first. He walked quickly to open the door of the back seat, and out came a pair of long legs. When the man got down from the car, the atmosphere around seemed to have dropped a few degrees colder. Gong Shangzi looked at the cool man opposite him and sensed danger. Out of his protective reflexes, he subconsciously pulled the unbothered Ningxi closer to him. However, this very action was followed by waves of tension emanating from the man in front, and the air was frigid. Gong Shangzi felt a shudder travel through his body, and even his palms started to sweat. This man, what was up with him? Ningxi finally found her phone, and after turning it on, she looked for Lu Tingxiao's number and immediately called him. As she telephoned him, a familiar ringtone rang opposite of her. Ningxi was shocked, and she looked up to see the stony Lu Tingxiao in front of her. Lu Tingxiao. Ningxi subconsciously mumbled, then rubbed her eyes, thinking that her vision might have failed her. At this moment, behind Lu Tingxiao, Qing Feng nervously covered his face, prepared for an explosion. When she had confirmed that the person in front of her was really Lu Tingxiao, clear joy spread across the girl's face. She happily skipped over and greeted, "Big boss. It really is you. I thought I was mistaken. I was just calling you." Gong Shangzi did not think that Ningxi would ever be acquainted with someone who looked obviously dangerous and unfriendly from the first glance. He could not help but be slightly shocked. "Bo, Xiaoxi, you guys know each other?" Qing Feng sharply noticed the man's words. "Bo, It couldn't be this man's wife, could it? The lady boss had only gone overseas for a short period of time. Had she started secretly dating already? This was a nightmare. If Ching Feng had caught on to it, obviously Lu Tingxiao would have realized it too, and his expression instantly fell flat. While Lu Tingxiao and Ching Feng had thought of something way beyond the truth, Ningxi was still oblivious as she enthusiastically pulled Gong Xiangze over to introduce him. "Xiangze, this is my boss's boss's boss, Lu Tingxiao. The point is, he's my biggest big boss, my friend, and my mentor." Lu Tingxiao's expression did not change at all. In fact, it darkened further. Even though Ningxi had introduced him as someone of importance, obviously none of those labels were what he wanted to be known as. Gong Xiangze was in a dilemma when he heard this. His boss's boss, so how should he address him? "Nice to meet you, Mr. Lu," Gong Xiangze finally greeted courteously. "MMM." Lu Tingxiao had to struggle to maintain his gentlemanly demeanor. He nodded slightly by way of greeting. Gong Xiangze did not know if it was him overthinking things, but he felt like the man in front of him gave off a strong vibe of hatred towards him. In fact, from the moment he had appeared, he already felt increasing tension. Ningxi continued to introduce him to Lu Tingxiao. "Big boss, let me introduce, this is Gong Xiangze. He's my..." At this moment, Ningxi finally realized that Lu Tingxiao had a fierce look on his face, but she did not know what was wrong either. She hesitated slightly as she continued, "He's my friend whom I met in Los Angeles. He's a very talented fashion designer." What was going on? Not only was Lu Tingxiao looking unlike his usual self, but why did it seem like even Ching Feng was behaving oddly? Get latest Evil CHDers on NVE/LBJ/N.C/M. Was it something wrong that she had said? Ningxi immediately changed the topic. "Big boss, you came to pick me up even though it's quite late already. Thank you for going through the trouble." "It's no trouble, it was on the way." On the way? How could the airport be on the way to anywhere? Ningxi had no response to him when she noticed that Lu Tingxiao's gaze rested on her shoulders. What was up now? Lu Tingxiao reached out and naturally took the coat off her. Then, he took off his own coat and covered her shoulders again. "This one is thicker." "Oh, thank you." Ningxi nodded, stunned. Lu Tingxiao looked at her and managed to hold his annoyance in without any further questions. He opened the car door for her and said, "Get in the car, it's cold outside." Ching Feng followed suit and opened the door to the shotgun seat. "Mr. Gong, how about you sit here? There are some things in the back seat, so there's probably no space for you." "Okay." Gong Xiangze was naive and he did not think much about it, immediately taking shotgun. The car started to slowly move and there was an awkward silence. Lu Tingxiao started at the youth in the shotgun seat. He looked clean and handsome, probably close to Ningxi's age. When he saw the two of them standing together earlier, they looked like a good match, as much as he did not want to admit it. To confirm their relationship would only take a sentence, but no matter what, he could not bring himself to ask it. He was a nobody. What right did he have to ask about her private matters? As slow as Ningxi might be, she could still notice that Lu Tingxiao was not in a good mood that night, so she dared not to start talking again. Thus, the car was filled with an eerie silence, making everyone feel uncomfortable. At that moment, from a corner of the car, Ching Feng could only sigh internally, "Second master, come home soon, I cannot handle this on my own." Achoo! Probably due to the chilly wind earlier, Ningxi sneezed. Lu Tingxiao frowned, then finally broke the silence. "Ching Feng, please adjust the temperature slightly higher." After that, he brought a blanket over and passed it to Ningxi so she could cover her legs since she wore a dress. Then, he gave her the supper he had prepared much earlier. Ningxi was shocked by Lu Tingxiao's actions. Big boss, you came well prepared. As a peasant, I'm taken aback by your affection. Don't be shocked, you are a hardworking peasant and you did very well this time. Ningxi took the meal box, then secretly peeked at Lu Tingxiao's unconvincing poker face and asked, "Really? But why do I feel like you're not terribly happy?" Since she saw him earlier, she had already felt that something was not right. Lu Tingxiao took a deep breath and tried to control his emotions, hating himself for being petty. "I'm not unhappy." "Liar, you're obviously not happy." Ningxi bit the end of her chopsticks and mumbled softly. Her eyes fell on Gong Xiangze, who sat shotgun. Gong Xiangze. She suddenly thought of a possibility which she had not thought of at all. Big boss, could he possibly be jealous? This should not be possible. She had already introduced him as a newly made friend. Forget it, instead of guessing, she should just test him. Ningxi thought about it, then asked, "Big boss, guess how Xiangze and I met?" As Ningxi spoke, she took the opportunity to secretly look at Lu Tingxiao's expression. He was really, in fact, jealous. When she saw Lu Tingxiao looking morose to the point that he could not disguise it any longer, Ningxi buried her face in her hands and could not help but laugh. In her heart, Lu Tingxiao had always been tall, mighty and dominant, with a sense of maturity and stability. The fact that he was jealous of a beggar was something she had never even thought would happen. Okay, it was also her fault that she forgot that after cleaning up, Gong Xiangze was rather handsome and would probably be a lady's magnet. How? Lu Tingxiao looked like he wanted to know, yet he did not want to at the same time. It was beyond complicated. Ningxi held her chin and looked at the devil's expression. The more she looked, the more she thought it was cute. She just wanted to throw herself onto him and give him a kiss. "He was someone I picked up on the streets." Picked up on the streets? When he heard this answer, Lu Tingxiao clearly looked very taken aback. "Yeah. Haha, unexpected, isn't it?" Gong Xiangze, who sat shotgun, heard their conversation and laughed. "If it had not been for Xiaoxi, I would probably still be begging on the streets of Los Angeles." When they heard this, Lu Tingxiao and Qingfeng were shocked. Qingfeng especially, his head was wild with thoughts about some foreign affair with sparks of romance and then her bringing her lover home. He did not expect such a miraculous situation at all. Indeed, the lady boss was so unpredictable that the average person's thought process did not apply to her. When she saw that the tension in Lu Tingxiao had finally dropped a notch, Ningxi started to share the process of how she met Gong Xiangze. "After the advertisement was wrapped up, I was prepared to go shopping. I was happily wearing my new dress when suddenly a beggar came up to me and said one word, 'Ugly.' I swear I was so angry." Ningxi described the story in detail to Lu Tingxiao, and he listened patiently with a focused expression throughout the story. He suitably responded and asked questions interjectively, even inviting Gong Xiangze to say a few words here and there. The atmosphere in the car suddenly turned from winter to spring. All west ch.rs on n.o/vli/n/. Qingfeng breathed a sigh of relief. The danger had been resolved and the boss's rationality was back online again. "That's what happened. So, Xiangze is not only my new friend but also my future business partner. We have decided to start a fashion design studio, whereby I'll provide the funds and he'll do the work." Lu Tingxiao's tightened expression for the entire car ride had finally relaxed at this point. No wonder the two of them had returned to the country together. "Why did you suddenly want to start a studio?" Lu Tingxiao asked. Of course, it's for you." Apart from acting, she suddenly had other ambitions and it was all because of him. Ningxi thought about it, then answered, "Well, it's not a sudden urge, I previously have had such plans already." It just so happened that this time, the perfume advertisement fees were released, and then even more coincidentally, I picked up the designer I have been a fan of for a long time while shopping. This is fate. She herself felt that her luck was off the charts. Ningxi's sparkling eyes looked at Lu Tingxiao, so miraculous. Big boss, I noticed that ever since I have met you and Little Treasure, my luck has started to be positive, and no matter what I do, it all goes well. The two of you must be my lucky stars. One small lucky star and one big lucky star. Lu Tingxiao could not help but laugh. Is that so? Qing Feng was in tears. The lady boss was amazing. The boss was actually laughing. Because Gong Shanzi did not have a place to stay in Imperial, Lu Tingxiao accompanied Ningxi to look for a hotel near Regal Riviera Hotel for him to settle down. Ningxi stood at the door and waved. Shanzi, I'll leave now. Rest well tonight, I'll come looking for you tomorrow. I'll bring you to buy new clothes, bags, handphones, and as for whatever else you're lacking, we'll see. Full 0W current novels on n/o/v/3l/b in.co/m. Gong Shanzi was touched. Actually, there's no need for so much trouble. All I need is a place to stay. Ningxi immediately pouted. How can you say that? I'm now responsible for you. Gong Shanzi teared and he said, Thank you, boss. Hey. Gong Shanzi's vulnerable demeanor really made it too easy for people to feel protective over him. Ningxi said gently, Good, go to sleep now. Once they walked out of the hotel, Ningxi lamented, Big boss, I only now understand that it feels pretty awesome to be a boss. To be your employee would be pretty awesome too. Lu Tingxiao subconsciously mumbled to himself. What? Ningxi had not heard him. Ha, it's nothing. Have you chosen the location of the studio yet? Lu Tingxiao asked. Ningxi scratched her head as she answered, Not yet. This is not a small issue, I need to properly give it some thought. Later, let me know your requirements and budget. I can help you list down a few suitable locations, said Lu Tingxiao. Ningxi naturally felt bad when she heard this. Ah. It would trouble you too much. Lu Tingxiao was such a busy person, how could she trouble him for something small like this? Lu Tingxiao shot her a look instead and said carefully, It's not too troublesome, you're my responsibility. Ningxi coughed. Okay, devil, you win. The car reached Regal Riviera Hotel very soon. Ningxi was just about to bid Lu Tingxiao goodbye and get down from the car when his phone suddenly rang. Lu Tingxiao indicated for Ningxi to wait a while, then picked up the phone. I'm still out, what? When did this happen? Okay, I'll return immediately. When she heard Lu Tingxiao's slightly panicked voice, Ningxi immediately asked worriedly, What's wrong? Lu Tingxiao remained controlled as usual. He patted her head and said, Nothing, go rest now. Ningxi did not get out of the car. Instead, she sat in the same spot and stared at him. Lu Tingxiao laughed, It's really nothing, there's just a slight problem at the office. I'll go over to have a look. I'm not lying to you, go now. Ningxi still did not move and her gaze looked even sharper. Did something happen to Little Treasure? Lu Tingxiao clearly looked a little shocked, as if he did not expect her to guess. When she saw Lu Tingxiao's expression, Ningxi knew that she had hit the nail on its head. Actually, she did not know why she was so confident either, but she just had a gut feeling. What's wrong with Little Treasure? Suddenly, Ningxi's heart lurched in her throat. Lu Tingxiao gently consoled her, It's a small thing, just a little fever. You know how it is, it's very common for a child to get a fever. The doctor has already been sent over and I'll immediately go home to see him now too, it's not too much of an issue. Even though Lu Tingxiao said it casually, Ningxi did not feel assured at all. She held her hand to her heart that was beating faster, and she had an unexplainable bad feeling about this. Even though Lu Tingxiao had said it casually, Ningxi did not feel assured at all. She held her hand to her heart that was beating faster, and she had an unexplainable bad feeling about this as she pleaded, "Lu Tingxiao, bring me with you, I won't make things awkward for you. I won't go in, I'll just wait outside, and if there's nothing, then I'll come back. If not, even if you let me go home now, I'd definitely not be able to fall asleep." He saw the girl's unbelievably determined attitude, but Lu Tingxiao still held himself back, as if there was something he could not say. "Okay?" Ningxi tugged on the hem of Lu Tingxiao's sleeves and was pretty much begging as she shook her head stubbornly. Lu Tingxiao frowned and his expression became more serious as he contemplated it. At last, he looked at her and chose his words carefully before finally saying, "Okay, Ningxi, listen to me, little treasure, he's not just having a simple fever. Actually, it might be a little serious. I can bring you along, but you can't be too emotional." As soon as Lu Tingxiao said that, Ningxi's tears started to fall. "Little treasure is in a serious condition? What is it? How can he be in a serious condition when he was fine before? Didn't you just say it was only a fever? Why is the fever serious? And you said you weren't lying to me. Is there anything else you're hiding from me?" Lu Tingxiao did not expect that Ningxi would cry instantly, and he did not know what to do. He quickly told Qing Feng to drive to the old residence while he fumbled for tissue to let her wipe her tears. He said helplessly, "I was afraid that you would be exactly like this, so I did not dare bring you along. Look at you, we're not even there yet and you're like this. How will you be when you see little treasure later?" Ningxi cried even harder and could not even speak coherently anymore. Lu Tingxiao's heart was about to break at her cries, and since he was not good at cheering people up, he could only hug her in his embrace and pat the back of the sobbing girl. "If I knew, I wouldn't have told you." He did not expect that Ningxi's reaction would be even worse than he thought. In front, Qing Feng, who was driving, was also shocked speechless. He was not only shocked because someone with a strong personality like Ningxi could display such a vulnerable side, but he was even more shocked by the gentle side of his boss. Discover NW Chapter SNN0EL by .com. He had really broken the record today with these new insights. What shocked him the most was the fact that the feelings between the two of them were really like a pair of husband and wife who were worried for their beloved son. Not a single feeling of violation. Ningxi was already feeling remorseful. Why had she only seen little treasure in a rush when she sent Lu Tingxiao to the old residence back then? She had left so quickly. Why didn't she care for little treasure more? Why was she afraid of contacting little treasure too much for the sake of the two oldies? Why was her skin not thicker? After crying for a long while, Ningxi finally recovered from her emotions and she begged, "Lu Tingxiao, don't keep any secrets from me, I want to know." Lu Tingxiao replied, "Then, you must promise not to cry anymore." "I can't promise." Lu Tingxiao buried his face in his hands. Finally, he could only compromise and he tried his best to explain in a gentle tone, "Actually, it's an old issue. From the moment little treasure had that incident, he would have such outbreaks once in a while and a high fever is one of the symptoms. But what's different from the usual fever is that the high fever won't stop, no matter what. There is just no way to break the fever." Ningxi looked stunned. How could this be? Lu Tingxiao quickly consoled her, "Since the last time this has happened half a year ago, it hasn't repeated. This time might also be just a normal fever, so don't be too worried." CHCK for US Tirais on no/v/l/bin. C0M. Ningxi knew that it definitely was not just a simple fever, otherwise Lu Tingxiao would not have sounded like that earlier. Ching Feng! Stop the car! Ning Shi suddenly shouted at Ching Feng. Ching Feng knew that even if he did not obey the boss, he had to obey the lady boss. Thus, he parked the car at the roadside obediently. Miss Ning, what is it? Ning Shi did not say anything, opening the door then walking to the front to open the door of the driver's seat. You go sit at the back. Ah. Ching Feng was taken aback. Ning Shi could not wait any longer. She dragged him by the collar and stuffed him into the back seat before she got into the driver's seat and stepped on the accelerator. The engine growled fiercely and the car flew like an arrow. Ching Feng did not know how to react and he was so frightened that his heart felt like it could jump out any time. He quickly held tightly onto the handles in the car and looked at the girl behind the wheel in horror. Just a second ago, she had just been a crying vulnerable little rabbit. How did she suddenly change into such a serious queen of speed? Couldn't she at least have given him a warning? Lu Tingxiao looked at his speeding wife and wanted to say something but did not. Fine, speed away. It was good for her to let it out too. The car kept overtaking other vehicles and speeding past with quick, skillful turns. Ching Feng felt nauseous as he looked to his big boss for help, hoping that he could advise her to slow down. Who knew that all he saw was the big boss loving and tolerating gaze at her. A moment later, they neared the old residence. The car remained at the speed of 400 miles per hour, and as he saw that the car was about to hit the gate, Ching Feng could not bear to look and squeezed his eyes shut. In the next second, Ning Shi hit the emergency brakes. The car stopped half a meter from the gate of the old residence. She quickly parked and turned her head to urge, Lu Tingxiao, go in quickly. Okay, you wait for me here. Lu Tingxiao got down from the car and walked briskly into the brightly lit residence courtyard. In the back seat, Ching Feng was practically crawling out of the car. As soon as he got off, he held onto a big tree and puked his guts out. In the living room, everyone looked nervous. Lu Chongshan was anxious and Yan Rui had cried her eyes out. When they saw Lu Tingxiao had returned, Yan Rui was relieved as though her backbone had been restored in her body. She quickly went to greet him, Tingxiao, you're finally back. Quickly go see Little Treasure. Lu Tingxiao immediately walked into Little Treasure's room and saw that the little guy lay on the bed looking as pale as paper with cracked lips and his little body was twitching non-stop. A group of doctors surrounded him and everyone looked uneasy. Lu Tingxiao's expression instantly darkened. Little Treasure's situation was even more serious than he had thought. How did this happen? Lu Tingxiao questioned frigidly. Yan Rui clearly tried to avoid his gaze. We're not sure either. Little Treasure didn't look too good since this afternoon, so we got the doctors to come have a look and they said it was a small fever, not too big of a deal. In the middle of the night, his temperature suddenly shot up to 40 degrees and his body started to have spasms. His temperature would not go down, no matter what. It is the exact same situation as before. Have you tried the medication? Lu Tingxiao asked. Qin Mufeng, who was trying to reduce Little Treasure's temperature with alcohol, wiped the sweat from his forehead and straightened up. He looked serious as he said, I have, it's the same as before, it's helpful immediately, but very soon, the temperature went up again. Little Treasure's body is too weak and he is not used to the frequent use of such strong medicine. Sedatives are out of the question as well, or else it would be of further harm to him than the illness. Yan Rui cried as she watched the body of her dearest grandson twitch helplessly. Well, we can't watch Little Treasure continue like this. All you doctors, aren't you all of top-notch quality? Why can't you treat a fever like this? Qin Mufeng said, his head aching, there are many things that even the medical field can't explain. We've already done many checks on Little Treasure before this and his body showed no other changes. Without any changes, the doctors have no reference point to deal with. Little treasure is already so ill, how could you say there was no change? Clearly, it's your medical skills that are not up to par. Yen Rui said exasperatedly, refusing to listen to any further explanations. Lu Chongshan held his wife's shoulders and said, "Rui, calm down. Little treasure is already so ill, how can I be calm? You should have listened to me and invited people over to chase the demons away. These doctors aren't useful at all. Little treasure looks like he's been possessed by the devil, the more I look at it. Either that or he's lost his soul," Yen Rui said emotionally. Lu Chongshan's expression changed when he heard this, and he scolded her, "What devil possession and losing his soul? Why nonsense are you spewing? Little treasure is on holiday today, he did not go to school or even go out. He has just been at home, what devils could he have possibly met?" Yen Rui still would not give up. "Then, explain to me, what's the reason? I would much rather believe it to be the truth." Lu Chongshan's face hardened and he could not help but remind her, "The last time Little Treasure had an outbreak, I listened to you and invited some medium to call his soul back, and in the end? In the end, it turned out worse than Little Treasure's illness and you almost, how could you still think about all those nonsense? Do you want to kill Little Treasure? Then, let's go invite Master Xian Jing. Do you think Master Xian Jing is some wizard? You can try to invite him if you want. He never intervenes in things like this and you know that. Then you tell me what to do." While the two old ones fought, Qin Mufeng pulled Lu Tingxiao to a corner and said in a lowered voice, "Actually, I still think the main cause is psychological. I'll tell you secretly, the reason Little Treasure is like this is not unfounded. They were just afraid you'd be angry, so they did not dare tell you. Weren't your parents busy looking to set you up with a partner for a while now? Well, today Madame Zhuang came to visit your house and brought their daughter, Zhuang Ku'er, along. I'm guessing Little Treasure accidentally bumped into them and he felt provoked." Lu Tingxiao's veins on his neck bulged out in vexation. Those two were his closest family members and yet, this incident was technically caused by them. Now, the two old ones were so frightened that they could get sick anytime too. He could not say a single word of unkindness. Read latest chapters at n/velbi.co/m. Little Treasure is important. Just call Ningxi over to try and help. Qin Mufeng expressed his final opinion. Lu Tingxiao frowned and sounded slightly frustrated. "I'm afraid that if she comes over, there would be 2 sick people instead of just 1. Just from hearing about this, she could barely handle it. If she really saw Little Treasure in this state, how sad would she be?" Qin Mufeng rubbed his nose after being scolded, but there aren't any other better options now. Actually, he knew that his suggestion was a hard one to pull off. It was very difficult for him to even blurt it out. Only after an intense battle of his thoughts did he say it. As a psychologist himself, he eventually had to rely on someone like Ningxi who was not from the industry. He was truly ashamed of himself. As she watched Little Treasure's condition become increasingly serious, Yen Rui cried until she was about to faint of exhaustion. Lu Chongshan too was shaken and could not hold on any longer. Lu Tingxiao cursed under his breath and called Ningxi in the end, "Xiao Shi." "Lu Tingxiao. How's Little Treasure? Is he okay? Is it not too big of a deal?" Ningxi impatiently asked in one breath. It was hard for Lu Tingxiao to say, "You, just come in. Wait, I'll go outside to get you." After he hung up, Lu Tingxiao quickly walked out of the door. Yen Rui became anxious when she saw Lu Tingxiao actually walking out. "Tingxiao, Little Treasure is already like this, where are you going?" Lu Tingxiao did not reply, continuing to make quick and long strides. He did not even turn around and just walked out. At the courtyard gate, Ningxi had gotten down from the car and was walking back and forth outside. She would look at the courtyard nervously from time to time. She finally saw Lu Tingxiao's shadow. Lit. Before Ningxi could say anything more, Lu Tingxiao had opened the courtyard gate and grabbed her hand to walk in with him without saying anything further. Ningxi was speechless as she watched Lu Tingxiao hold her hand tightly, and she could roughly guess what the situation was inside. Little Treasure was probably in an even more serious condition than she could ever imagine. A wave of fear that she had not felt before rose from her feet to her heart. At this very moment, Little Treasure's room was in a state of chaos. Then, from behind them came the sound of footsteps. New N0VEL chapters are published on N0V/E/LBIN. Co/M. Everyone turned around, and that was when they saw Lu Tingxiao had brought a girl along with him. Lu Chongshan's expression immediately changed into one of fury. Why did you bring this woman here for? Do you think Little Treasure's condition is not serious enough? To Lu Chongshan, Ningxi's presence was probably worse than a witch or a medium. Even though Yan Rui was not happy, she did not reject her as intensely as Lu Chongshan did. She had entirely lost all rationality. Lu Chongshan breathed heavily and roared, "Get her out of here immediately!" Lu Tingxiao held Ningxi's hand tightly and was about to say something when Ningxi shook her head at him, then wriggled out of his hand. Ningxi did not break down on the spot like Lu Tingxiao had predicted. Instead, what he did not expect was to see Ningxi's calm attitude towards Little Treasure, who lay seriously ill on the bed. She did not even care about Lu Chongshan's complaints and loud scolding. After she wriggled out of Lu Tingxiao's hand, she made her way towards Little Treasure's bed. Even though she clearly looked like a weak and gentle girl, her eyes were filled with determination, to the point that all the doctors and peasants, who had heard Lu Chongshan's orders and wanted to block Ningxi's way, all made way for her. When Lu Chongshan saw this, he fumed, "Stop right there. What do you think you're doing? Didn't all you hear what I said? Who said you could let her in?" Lu Tingxiao held out his arm and blocked his father, who about to rush out. At this moment, Ningxi sat on Little Treasure's bedside. First, she quickly took off the coat on her, then she reached under the thick blanket placed on Little Treasure. Lastly, she carefully held the feverish and soft little guy in her embrace. Lu Chongshan was so angry to a breaking point when he saw this girl who was so daring as to not listen to his warnings, even using her filthy hands to touch Little Treasure as she wished. He was about to roar at her, but he did not know why he suddenly shut up. Discover new stories at nv/lbin.c/o. Even though the little bun had long been in a state of confusion due to the fever, once Ningxi held him in her embrace, it was as if he knew who was hugging him in his subconscious. He immediately used his warm little hands to hold on tightly to the hem of Ningxi's clothes, and his feverish little face was buried into Ningxi's embrace. Ningxi was only pretending to be calm, but because of Little Treasure's subconscious little action of pulling himself closer to her, her facade faded for a moment. Because there were still too many other people present, she could only force herself to hold it in, and her eyes became slightly glazed over with stubborn tears. At this moment, Ningxi had already completely stopped caring about the gaze of everyone around her. She didn't care about the doctors, or Father Lu and Mother Lu, who were looking on angrily. Her eyes and heart were only reserved for the weak and suffering little bun in her embrace. Ningxi hugged the little bun even tighter, then bent over to kiss the little bun's forehead and tiny face before she said with a very gentle tone, "Baby, Auntie is here, don't worry." It was as if that voice of hers held a special power to calm a person down, because not only Little Treasure, but everyone else present felt like their frustration and chaos subside at the sound of it. Lu Chongshan still stood there unmoving, and he forgot about his anger momentarily. The little bun was curled up in Ningxi's embrace, while his little body continued to shiver slightly. However, the expression on his face was clearly different from the one earlier when he was akin to being tortured in a nightmare. Right now, he seemed assured and contented. Ningxi adjusted her posture, stood up and let the little bun's head rest on her shoulders. Lu Tingxiao helped Ningxi adjust the little bun into a comfortable position, then picked up the blanket on the bed to cover his son. After that, Ningxi started to walk around the room, and as she walked, she started to sing gently, "Sleep, sleep, my dearest baby, Mummy's hands will gently shake you. Sleep, sleep, my dearest baby, Mummy's arms will protect you forever. Sleep, sleep, my dearest baby, Mummy loves you, Mummy likes you." This woman! She actually had the nerves to call herself Little Treasure's mother. How shameless! Lu Chongshan should have been angry, but he did not know why. As he watched the woman carry Little Treasure and walk around and singing a lullaby, the raging fire in him did not lash out. Instead, he felt like he did not want to ruin the moment and disturb them. All the doctors and servants on the sidelines, especially the female ones, started to have tears well up in their eyes as they watched the little bun's head rest on the girl's shoulder, his face filled with assurance and love. Sigh, the little master is so pitiful, having to live without a mother's love since such a young age. Actually, at a time like this, a mother's hug, kiss, and gentle lullaby should work even better than any miracle medications. They even thought that if this woman was really the little master's mother, it would be perfect. Yen Rui had the oddest look on her face. As she watched her dear grandson who lay on Ningxi's shoulder while he slowly calmed down and even his body stopped the spasming, she suddenly recalled Master Xianjing's words from the other day. Beyond good luck, beyond good luck. Ningxi was not a doctor, so there was no way she knew how to cure illnesses, and she could only use the best of her abilities to console the little bun. Apart from that, there was a strand of telepathy between them that even she could not really understand. When the little bun made a slight movement, cough, frown, or even had a difference in breathing frequency, she would naturally know where he was uncomfortable. She would change her position or let Lu Tingxiao cover the little bun with a blanket, or mumble something into the little bun's ear to indicate that she was still here. Before Ningxi had arrived, the little bun lay on the bed while his entire body was in an unstable state. No matter how many people took care of him and fussed about him, he still could not calm down. Now that he was in Ningxi's embrace, his little head leaned on her shoulder and he looked so calm and comfortable. He even entered into a sweet slumber. The doctors who were watching on the sidelines looked at one another and all breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time, they all kept utter silent, afraid to make a single sound, worried that they would wake the little guy up again. If anything had really happened to the little master tonight, the entire house would be slaughtered. The most serious part of Little Treasure's current situation was not the fever, but his emotions that continued to be high-strung when his body was at its weakest state and needed rest. If he could not fall asleep, it would be hard for him to recover, no matter what illness it was. However, Ningxi's presence had clearly resolved the most vital problem. Ningxi had been carrying and coaxing the little bun for a while now, and Lu Tingxiao observed that she had moved her arm slightly uncomfortably. Of course, how could her arm not be tired? Lu Tingxiao made Little Treasure's bed and indicated for Ningxi to put him down to sleep. Ningxi looked at the little bun in her embrace and saw that the little guy's breathing had stabilized and he had completely fallen asleep. She then walked slowly to the bedside, bent over, and carefully put the little bun onto the bed. Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui eventually calmed down when they saw that. However, just as Ningxi placed the little bun onto the bed, the little guy's peaceful face immediately scrunched up and his body started to shiver again. As they watched Little Treasure having a fit again, the two old ones were frightened. Before they could even calm down, another attack came up. Ningxi was obviously the first to notice, so she immediately hugged the little bun again and started to pat and sing to him again. Even though she was pretty much helpless, there were no signs of impatience from her. Even though Lu Tingxiao was worried about his son, he was obviously distressed for his wife as well, so he walked over and had Ningxi sit down on the bed. "What is it?" Ningxi hugged the little bun and looked suspiciously. In the next second, she widened her eyes in shock. Lu Tingxiao squatted down and started to personally take her shoes off for her. Of course, even more shocked than Ningxi was everyone else who stood quietly in the room, as well the devil's parents. Only Qin Mufeng rubbed his nose, and even though it was an unexpected sight, he was already used to it. After Lu Tingxiao had helped Ningxi take off her shoes, he lightly put her legs onto the bed and stacked 2 soft pillows behind her to let her lean on the bed frame. He then adjusted her into a comfortable position, before covering her with a blanket. He looked serious when he said with a stern tone that would not tolerate rejection, "You get some sleep for a while too. You rushed over immediately after getting off the flight and you haven't even rested yet." "Oh." Ningxi hugged the little bun on her lap and nestled into the soft pillow. She was indeed feeling much more comfortable. "Oh." Ningxi hugged the little bun on her lap and nestled into the soft pillow. She was indeed feeling much more comfortable. Unfortunately, the scorching gazes surrounding her were a little overwhelming. Lu Tingxiao sternly waved his hand and everyone immediately regained their senses from their shock and walked out nervously. They could only guess in their heart, who was this woman that the big master had brought back. Not only did she manage to coax the little master as soon as she arrived, but she even had the big master, who seemed to be void of human emotions, to be so gentle with her. Could it be that this woman is our little master's biological mother?" One of the maids said with a look of realization dawning on her face. "That's not possible. Didn't they say that the little master's biological mother had long passed away? Otherwise, which woman would be so cruel as to abandon their own child? In fact, our big master is such an excellent man. Up-to-date OVLS on OVL bin.cm. Perhaps there is something that cannot be revealed. You lot, are you done with living? How dare you discuss such things? If the master and Madame Lu find out, be prepared to get chased out," one of the maids with a higher status scolded them, and immediately, everyone shut up. In the Lu family, the topic about the little master's mother was an unspeakable taboo. Ningxi's journey plus tonight's shock by the little bun had made her quite tired. However, in the room were still Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui, the 2 old ones. With them standing around her lying on the bed, she felt awkward, what more sleeping in front of them. "Father, Mother, you both go get some rest. I will be here to keep watch," Lu Tingxiao said to the both of them. Lu Chongshan looked like he was in a dilemma as he watched his beloved grandson sleeping soundly in Ningxi's embrace. He frowned and was about to say something when Yen Rui nudged him, "Then, we'll leave now. If there's anything with little treasure, you must let us know immediately." In the living room, Lu Chongshan, who had been dragged out by his wife, looked unhappy. "Why did you drag me out for?" Yen Rui looked hesitant. "Chongshan, don't you feel like that girl is very special?" "What's so special about her?" "It's just that she could coax him. Otherwise, would little treasure and Tingxiao be so charmed by her?" What Lu Chongshan was angriest about right now was how he had to watch his own son and grandson be completely under that woman's control and he could not do anything. Little treasure was suffering so much earlier, but once she came, he became better. Is this really just a matter of coaxing? Yen Rui expressed her disagreement. Lu Chongshan knew that he was prejudiced, but there was no way he would admit this, so he argued, "Then, can you tell why was it so?" Yen Rui started to say, "Maybe, this girl has a good birth chart with prosperous good luck and can bless our little treasure." When Lu Chongshan heard this, he said bitterly, "What nonsense are you spewing now?" "How am I spewing nonsense?" This was what Master Xian Jing said himself. Yen Rui blurted out emotionally. "What did you say? Why would Master Xian Jing say something like this?" Lu Chongshan immediately questioned seriously. Yen Rui evaded her gaze as she answered helplessly, "To tell you the truth, the other day when I asked Master Xian Jing to evaluate the birth dates, I brought along the birth date of this girl too." You. Lu Chongshan was outraged when he heard this. "Why did you bring that girl's birth dates over for? Unless you want to let her into our family?" Yen Rui's shoulders shrunk and she said, "No way. I was just worried whether this girl would jinx our Tingxiao and little treasure, so I wanted to let the master evaluate." Lu Chongshan still felt doubtful, and after cooling down, he shot her a look and asked, "What were the results then?" Your F48 stories on /o/v/lbn.cm. Yen Rui looked slightly emotional as she recalled, "We chose so many girls from good families for such a long time and no one stood out. Only Ning Shi, as Master Xian Jing said, had a birth chart which showed good luck, a happy family, prosperity, and lots of children." Although Lu Chongshan was mentally prepared, he was still shocked to hear the results. How could this be? Did Master Xian Jing really say this himself? Why would I lie to you for? This were Master Xian Jing's exact words, not a single word missing. Master Xian Jing even said that this girl's birth chart is very compatible with our Tingxiao's. Initially, I did not believe too much in it either, and I was afraid you'd scold me, so I didn't tell you. Until today when little treasure fell sick, I recalled his words again. All of us have used up every way possible, and nothing worked. Yet, the moment this girl came, our little treasure's illness immediately improved so much. Even if it was as simple as little treasure really liking this girl, the influence on his illness would not be this huge, would it? Yen Rui deciphered bit by bit. Lu Chongshan listened to this with a serious expression and walked back and forth in the living room. Finally, he decided and said, "The birth chart is only a proxy, how can you believe it to be entirely true? Don't mention this ever again. Besides, whether little treasure has recovered fully is still unknown, what if he later..." Hey! Can you not curse your grandson like that? Yen Rui instantly scolded her husband and looked dissatisfied. "I was just worried about little treasure." Lu Chongshan noticed that he had said the wrong thing too and was embarrassed. Lu Chongshan deliberated as he thought about Yen Rui's words earlier. He looked conflicted, and he finally stared at his wife seriously and shouted, "Things like birth charts are baseless." However, someone's true character can be observed from all sorts of aspects. Don't forget why little treasure became like this 2 years ago. It was because we gullibly believed someone like that. Actually, Yen Rui knew as well that even if Lu Chongshan found out what Master Xian Jing had said the other day, his attitude would not change much. When she heard this, she looked pale and nodded, "I was just saying, obviously I will still be careful." Inside little treasure's room. After Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui had left, sleepiness immediately came over Ningxi. She was worried about the little bun, so she still dared not fall asleep. Lu Tingxiao sat on the bedside and helped her arrange the blankets. "Sleep, I'm here. If anything, I'll call for you." Then, he lightly kissed the girl's forehead. Ningxi's eyes immediately widened. Lu Tingxiao's move was so shocking that now her sleepiness had reduced by half. Did he genuinely want to let me sleep? Looking at the girl's widened eyes, something flashed across Lu Tingxiao's deep gaze. Apologies. Even though he said he was sorry, what he did was an entirely different story. He leaned over and planted a kiss on the corner of her mouth for a long time, then only did he finally leave. By this time, Ningxi was already completely wide awake and shocked. Was he taking this opportunity because she was hugging little treasure and dared not move? "Ningxi, one day you will become little treasure's mother. My wife." In her dreams, Lu Tingxiao's words continued to replay in Ningxi's mind. "One day, you will become little treasure's mother." become baby Little Treasure's mother. If she really was his mother, how nice would that be? She really, really liked Little Treasure. She was still worried about Little Treasure after all, so she did not sleep soundly. Ningxi woke up after a little rest. The first thing she did after waking up was to look at the little bun in her embrace. It was a good thing the little guy was still sleeping soundly between her arms, and his soft little fingers subconsciously held onto her clothes hem. His neck and back revealed a layer of sweat. Good that he was starting to sweat, so that meant he was expelling the heat. Ningxi thought about this, then immediately touched the little bun's forehead. It felt like the temperature had gone down quite a bit. Lu Tingxiao was standing at the wide floor-to-ceiling window and looking at the sky, revealing a sliver of light. When he heard movement from the bed, he immediately walked over. "You're awake." Ningxi touched the little bun's forehead and urged softly, "Lu Tingxiao, check if baby's fever has subsided a little? I feel like Little Treasure's body is not as feverish as before." Lu Tingxiao nodded and used his huge palm to feel his son's forehead. His expression softened, his temperature did reduce. "Don't worry, I'll call for the doctor to check." Ningxi nodded. Lu Tingxiao went out for a while. When he returned, he was followed by Qin Mufeng and 2 other doctors. Qin Mufeng attentively brought a thermometer over. Lu Tingxiao took over the thermometer and carefully put it under Little Treasure's armpit. Find new stories on nov/elbin.com. A moment later, the results showed his temperature to be 37.8 degrees. Even though it was still slightly feverish, it was much better than the previous 40-degree fever. In fact, it was reduced without any medications, and this was not a simple feat. Then, the other 2 doctors did a detailed check on Little Treasure again. After last night's check, the doctors looked much more optimistic as they reported, "At this point, the little master's condition has stabilized, but we will still need to continue observing at least until tomorrow, past the 24-hour mark." At this moment, Lu Chongshan and Yan Rui had received the news and rushed in too. They quickly looked at the thermometer, and when they saw that the temperature had gone down, they breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, we must still continue to observe. It's best to be careful. Who knows if the fever will return, since before this it was fluctuating too. Yan Rui said worriedly. Lu Chongshan nodded in agreement. After a night of being tensed, they could finally relax a little. He dared not to imagine if something were to really happen to Little Treasure. At this moment, Ningxi, who was hugging the little bun on the bed, suddenly frowned and screamed, "Ah!" Instantly, everyone's nervous gazes fell on her. "Yan Rui, what is it? What is wrong with Little Treasure?" Lu Chongshan asked too, "What is it?" The doctors' hearts were practically at their throats too. Nothing must happen to this little heir. With everyone's anxious looks, Ningxi wanted to say something but stopped. She looked awkwardly and made everyone question her even more worriedly. At last, Lu Tingxiao walked over without a word. First, he rolled up his sleeves, then tugged Ningxi's blanket away. His actions looked very natural as he started to massage her legs and asked with a calm voice, "Are your legs numb?" All the doctors and servants were speechless. My God! This man who had just rolled up his sleeves to massage a woman's legs, was this really the unfriendly big master they knew, the scary CEO of the Lu Corporation, Lu Tingxiao? Since last night, their perception and image of Lu Tingxiao were refreshed numerous times in their hearts. Even Lu Chongshan and Yan Rui were in disbelief. They could not believe that this man in front of them was really their biological son. Before this, they only knew that their son was charmed by this woman, and they had never personally witnessed any concrete actions that demonstrated his sentiments towards her. Now that they had, they were shocked. It was definitely 100 times more prominent than what the others said or what they could imagine. This was their own son, yet they almost could not recognize him anymore. Actually, the person who was even more shocked than the surrounding onlookers was Ningxi herself. At that very moment, Ningxi's heart felt as if it was keeping up with a stampede. Read the latest stories and novelbin.com. Devil, could you please keep it down a notch? Everyone is watching here. Unfortunately, Lu Tingxiao picked up neither the complaints from her heart nor the countless gazes staring at him. He continued to focus on massaging her numb legs, which was a result of not moving for a long time in fear of waking little treasure up. As he massaged, Ningxi practically gave up and became numb to the gazes surrounding her. In fact, the devil's skill was really good, the massage was really putting her at ease. Is it better now? Lu Tingxiao looked up to ask gently after a while. Ningxi quickly nodded. Much better. She thought silently, your father is looking at me as if I'm the concubine who toyed with a warrior's heart and brought calamity to a country and its people. Lu Tingxiao then covered her with the blanket again and gently arranged her slightly messy hair, continuing to publicly display his love for the girl. At this moment, all the servants in the old residence had come to a clear conclusion: they definitely could not offend this woman in front of him. Since he currently did need a favor, despite Lu Chongshan being very angry, he could only hold it in for little treasure's sake. He scoffed and angrily walked off, telling himself that it was best not to see anything more. As soon as he stormed off, Lu Chongshan could not keep it in any longer and started to complain to Yan Rui. How dare he? Look at how he was behaving, a big old man actually doing something like this for a woman, and using such a soft voice. Plus, he did it in front of everyone. How inappropriate. Does he even remember his own identity at all? As a mother, even though Yan Rui was not too happy either, from a woman's perspective, she didn't really find anything wrong with Lu Tingxiao's actions. If you really liked someone, you would naturally be extra caring. While Yan Rui thought about this, she nonchalantly looked over at Lu Chongshan. Her marriage to Lu Chongshan was a result of good timing. They looked good together and were said to be a perfect match, yet she knew clearly that this man had only married her because she was the most suitable candidate and that in fact, he had never truly loved her. On the second day, the doctor checked on Little Treasure during the noon and in the evening again. At night, Little Treasure's fever had finally subsided and his condition was finally stable again. After a whole day and night of fussing, everyone could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Since Little Treasure was already okay, Lu Chongshan, who had long been impatiently maintaining his composure, finally could not hold himself back any longer. He walked into Little Treasure's room and said to Ningxi, Miss Ning, thank you for all your care for Little Treasure this time. Later, I will get a driver to send you home. Lu Chongshan then told the butler, Xing Wu, go prepare a generous gift for her. These words were not only meant to imply that she was just a guest but also to completely void any relationships, a gesture to say that they owed each other nothing more after this. To wreck the bridge after crossing the river, to throw something that practically saved one's life after using it, wasn't it obvious what he was doing? Ningxi did not actually care about what Lu Chongshan thought of her. Her only gripe was the thought of separating from the little bun again, and she felt an ache in her bones. She subconsciously hugged the little bun even tighter. She really did not want to. She did not want to be separated from the little bun. In that moment, she felt a strong tug in the corner of her heart. She had a crazy idea of taking the little bun away by force. Read latest chapters at novel.bin/c/o/m only. The atmosphere around Ningxi instantly tingled with a chill as she skimmed the people present around her. She could estimate everyone's capabilities and knew that if she really wanted to, no one here except for Lu Tingxiao could stop her from taking Little Treasure away. Probably due to him being able to sense Ningxi's emotional roller coaster and the sudden cold in the air, the little bun, who was sleeping calmly in her embrace, frowned out of discomfort. Ningxi regained her senses and suppressed the impulse in her, patting the little buns back to console him. Rui, go carry little treasure. Lu Chongshan saw that the woman was not reacting to his offer and stayed unmoving instead, so he was irked. Yen Rui nodded and was about to take over little treasure from Ning X's embrace when Lu Tingxiao was one step ahead and went over to Ningxi's bedside. He indicated for Ningxi to let him carry little treasure. Ningxi, allow me. Ningxi noticed the sudden movement and looked at Lu Tingxiao vigilantly. Even if it was Lu Tingxiao himself, she was still unwilling to give the little bun to him. No. I'm not giving him. Baby little treasure is mine. When he saw the girl putting up a fierce guard, a loving look flashed across Lu Tingxiao's eyes. His gaze was akin to warm waves washing ashore to surround her. His tender tone had a way of calming one's heart. Be good, Xiaoxi, trust me, okay? Ningxi stared straight at Lu Tingxiao and felt her eyes tearing up. She doesn't trust him. She doesn't trust anyone. Why? Why was it that even you want to rob me of little treasure? No, that's not right. This is not robbing. Little treasure is originally theirs, not hers, not hers. Ningxi, what is wrong with you? What are you doing? Ningxi used all of her restraint to regain her senses. At last, she carefully passed over the little bun to Lu Tingxiao, while her gaze continued to cling onto him with a heavy heart, and her eyes were full of reluctance. Lu Tingxiao could not help but smile in amusement as he watched the girl look at him as if he was a traitor. Lu Chongshan nodded with satisfaction. Xingwu, go get the car ready. Miss Ning, please follow me. Xingwu acknowledged the orders and indicated for Ningxi to leave with him. Lu Tingxiao used one arm to carry the little bun who obviously seemed not unstable after changing embraces and used his other arm to guide Ningxi behind him protectively. Then, he looked at his parents coldly and said in a calm tone, Father, Mother, thank you for taking care of little treasure for this period time. The office has not been terribly busy recently and Jingli will be back soon, so I won't trouble you with little treasure anymore. As soon as he said that, the expression on Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui's faces immediately changed. Yen Rui instantly said anxiously, Tingxiao, what are you doing? Little treasure has just recovered and not fully. Where do you want to bring him? Lu Chongshan emotionally tapped his walking stick on the floor and roared, You bastard, what are you trying to say? You want to take little treasure away? I dare you! Lu Tingxiao remained cool and pointed out, Father, little treasure is your grandson, but he's my son too. Lu Chongshan spoke in a rush intimidatingly, I'm your old man. You've been charmed over your head by this woman. The only way for you to dare take little treasure away today is to walk over my dead body. Lu Tingxiao replied, If you must use your life to threaten me, I have nothing to say. But I insist on taking little treasure with me today. Suddenly, the atmosphere between the father and son became intense. Everyone was silent and no one dared to say anything. At this moment, Yen Rui was also completely on her husband's side. Tingxiao, even if you're blaming us for not taking care of little treasure well enough, this time was truly an accident. We are little treasure's grandparents. Is there anyone else who would treat him better than we do? You would rather believe a woman you have just recently met than your own biological parents? This has nothing to do with her. What Lu Chongshan could not stand most was his son's protective behavior over that woman. He was extremely mad now and did not care that there were many others present. He lost control and roared, Have you forgotten what happened 2 years ago? Have you forgotten how little treasure became like this? It was such a painful lesson. Is once not enough? How dare you believe a woman like this? You are just. Yen Rui quickly went to hold him up when she saw that Lu Chongshan was getting increasingly agitated. Ting Xiao, please understand how your father and I feel. We are just too afraid. Lu Tingxiao squinted slightly and tried to explain, I understand how you feel and I swear with my life that something like that will not happen for the second time. She's different. Ever since we have met, she has only nothing but love for Little Treasure. I'm sure you are also aware of the changes in Little Treasure even since he met her. However, the two old Lus were too stubborn, especially when the past incident was brought up. When they heard Lu Tingxiao's words, they were only momentarily persuaded for a few seconds before they went back to their headstrong opinions. No matter what Lu Tingxiao said at that moment would be considered by them, they just wouldn't let Lu Tingxiao take him away. Lu Tingxiao wore a dark mask on his face. Even though he did not want to, he knew that it was best to suffer for the short term rather than in the long term. He knew it would hurt them but he still spat it out anyway. The scariest thing is not that Little Treasure will be hurt by others, but by the ones closest to him in the name of love. You. Lu Chongshan's face instantly stiffened, and his body shook with rage when he heard this. His son's words were akin to a huge rock bearing upon his heart. Even though he had always acted in Little Treasure's best interests since he was strictly kept at the old residence, all he had ever received was harm, and last night he almost. Find EU chapters on nv/lbi.com. What followed Lu Tingxiao's words was pin-drop silence in the living room, and the argument was a stalemate. Now, the one who was in the most awkward position was Ning Shi. She knew that as long as she was here, they had many things that could not be said, so even though she did not want to leave the little bun, she still had to consider leaving first and letting the three family members have a proper discussion. Due to the loud voices and tension in the air, the little bun who lay on Lu Tingxiao's shoulders started to frown and his eyelashes fluttered before he slowly opened his eyes. Ning Shi was standing behind Lu Tingxiao and as soon as the little bun opened his eyes, he saw her. Because the little guy had just woken up, he had an extremely cute sleepy look on his face. He blinked a few times and then when he saw Ning Shi, his gaze did not move away from her. He thought his sight had failed him, so the little guy rubbed his eyes with his soft fists. Then, he opened up his short arms towards Ning Shi's direction without hesitation. In the next moment, the quiet air was filled with a soft and slightly grainy voice, "Hug." In the fueled atmosphere in the living room, the unexpected voice of such an adorable, sleepy toddler who could melt everyone's hearts was like a crystal-clear chime in a terse silent moment. All that remained on Lu Chongshan's gloomy face was a blank expression. Even Yen Rui widened her eyes. Even Lu Tingxiao, who had been calm throughout, was immediately stunned. With his son in his embrace, he remained stiffly in the same spot. The child's voice still rang in his ear and if it had not been for the remnants of the little guy's breath and the expectant look in his eyes, he would have thought that he was having an illusion. He had not heard that voice in a long time and it was just as he remembered it. He thought he would never hear that voice ever again. Because everyone present was just too bewildered, no one said anything for a while and all eyes fell on Little Treasure, their gazes full of expression but no words could come out. The person even more shocked than Little Treasure's grandparents and father was probably Ning Shi. She was standing in front of Little Treasure, so not only did she hear him, but she also saw with her own two eyes the moment the little bun had spoken. The little bun was oblivious to what an impact his actions had on everyone, only focusing on maintaining his arms open and wordlessly asking for a hug. When he saw that Ning Shi made no movement to hug him, he pouted and looked so sad that he was about to cry. The stunned Ning Shi finally returned to her senses and rushed to take the little bun from Lu Tingxiao's arms for a hug. Ning Shi's actions were like a switch that snapped everyone else out of their shock. Tingxiao, Little Treasure, he just. Visit no, v3lb/n. cm for new OVL. Did Little Treasure just speak earlier? Was it Little Treasure? Huh? Yen Rui and Lu Chongshan asked one question after another. They were so emotional that even their voices trembled. All around, the doctors and servants too started to whisper to one another. "Did you guys hear that?" The little master spoke. We heard it." The little master said, "Hug." "I thought I heard wrong, the little master hasn't spoken for 2 years. This is miraculous. What actually happened?" "I don't know. He just suddenly started speaking. I'm really amazed." When the little bun melted into Auntie Xiaoxi's embrace, he was finally satisfied and not even the noise around could affect him. He let out a delicate sneeze, then rested his head on Auntie Xiaoxi's fragrant shoulder and fell soundly asleep again. He left the entire room in shock with his one careless word. Miss Ning, you heard that too? Was it really Little Treasure talking? Can you ask him to speak a little more?" Yen Rui requested carefully. Lu Chongshan had completely forgotten his cruel instructions earlier and echoed, "Yes, yes, could you please?" As she saw the sincere looks from Yen Rui and Lu Chongshan, Ningxi patted the little bun gently on the back and awkwardly cleared her throat, "But Little Treasure is asleep now." Yen Rui and Lu Chongshan were speechless. Did he fall asleep again? What a bummer! However, they knew that they could not wake their dearest grandson up at that moment. Everyone's eyes fell onto Lu Tingxiao immediately. Lu Tingxiao looked at his son with a flicker of complicated emotions in his gaze, then lightly touched his son's head with his warm palm and tenderly said, "Little Treasure did speak earlier, but let's not rush him, we'll wait for him to wake up and see." No rush. They had already waited for 2 years and they even thought that they would never have the chance to hear his voice again. Alas, they managed to see the day that Little Treasure spoke. How could they not feel the need to rush? However, at this moment, they had no choice but to wait. Because the little bun's voice had interrupted Xinglu, who was carrying out orders, he finally found the courage to ask, "Master Lu, do I still have to prepare the car?" Lu Chongshan immediately shot him an unhappy look. "What for? Quickly get the kitchen to prepare dinner instead." Then, he cleared his throat and turned to Ningxi uncomfortably, "Miss Ning, why don't you stay for dinner?" There was no way he would be happy to have this woman stay, but his dearest grandson had chosen to speak for the first time, not to his grandparents, father, or doctors, but to this woman. "Yeah, stay for dinner." No, how about you stay for a few more days before leaving?" "Look, Little Treasure doesn't want to leave you too, does he?" Yen Rui spoke up as well. As she faced the sudden change in attitude in the two old Lus, Ningxi subconsciously turned to Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao frowned, he was not about to give in easily again. This time, he had to take Little Treasure away with him. Since he was his biological son, Lu Chongshan could guess what Lu Tingxiao thought, so he said, "Even if you want to take Little Treasure away with you, at least wait until he has recovered a little more. That way, we would be more assured for him to go with you. If you take Little Treasure away now, you'd just be intentionally trying to worry us, wouldn't you?" From the way he spoke, the stubborn Lu Chongshan was actually compromising. Suspicion flitted across Lu Tingxiao's eyes, then he looked to Ningxi and said, "Let's return to the room first and discuss when Little Treasure wakes up." Little Treasure had just spoken. He was afraid that if he were to take Little Treasure away right at that moment, Lu Chongshan would really disown him and their kinship. In such a situation, Ningxi naturally understood as well. She nodded and carried the little bun back to his room. As soon as Ningxi brought the little bun into the room with her, outside, Yen Rui and Lu Chongshan who could not control their emotions anymore. "Chongshan! Chongshan! Did you hear that? Did you? Our Little Treasure spoke. He really did. I thought that we would never see this day till the day we die." Yen Rui started to cry. "What nonsense. Didn't little treasure speak earlier? I already said that our Lu family is protected by the blessings of our ancestors, so little treasure will definitely recover. As he watched his parents get emotional, Lu Tingxiao stopped himself from saying anything further. He did not have the heart to dampen their enthusiasm. Little treasure had only said a single word. In fact, he had done it under little consciousness. Nevertheless, this was a huge breakthrough. In the room, Ningxi kissed the little bun's soft cheeks and she was so happy she could fly. Ha! My little bun spoke, he spoke. My little bun let me hug him, he let me hug him. At that moment, everyone waited nervously. Thankfully, the little bun had rested enough after sleeping for a day and night. Earlier after waking up, he had only returned to his nap for a short while and very quickly, he was awake again. When Ningxi saw the little bun open his eyes, she was immediately overjoyed but uncertain at the same time. She was afraid that she would frighten him, so she asked gently, "Baby, are you awake?" The little bun blinked as he started at Ningxi. After a while, he blinked again, then finally when he confirmed that the person in front of him was Auntie Xiaoxi, his grape-like eyes instantly sparkled like there were stars in them. The little bun clung onto Ningxi and wriggled a little in her embrace. He dared not blink as he stared at her, afraid that once he blinked, she would disappear. Ningxi watched him and felt her heart ache, then kissed the little bun on both his cheeks. "Auntie Xiaoxi is real, you're not dreaming. Daddy brought Auntie Xiaoxi here to see you because you were sick." The little bun who was cheered up by the kisses blushed, all the insecurities in his heart vanishing instantly. He pursed his lips shyly and returned Ningxi a kiss. Ningxi held her face with her hands, she felt so happy and blessed. She thought that only winning an Oscar would feel like this. As she looked at the little bun's moving eyes that seemed as if they could speak, Ningxi wanted to play with him for a little while more. However, she knew that at that very moment, many people were still waiting anxiously outside, so she said, "Baby, you're hungry, aren't you? Let Auntie bring you out for some food, okay?" The little bun nodded obediently. "Hold on, let Auntie put on your clothes for you." Ningxi carried the little bun and walked to the wardrobe, then started picking out his clothes for him. "Which one do you want to wear?" The little bun looked at the wardrobe and pointed his stubby little fingers at the set of cartoon sweaters Ningxi had bought for him. I was thinking the same thing." After she helped the little bun put on his clothes, Ningxi carried him out. As soon as they walked out, everyone's attention turned to them right away. The little boy who lay on the bed with no spirit last night had now changed into a brightly colored outfit. His eyes were much more active now too, and he was practically a different person. The servants all had the same thought. Indeed, a child with a mother is a gem. Seeing their dearest grandson awake and looking handsome and lovable, Yan Rui's eyes welled up with tears. Little treasure is awake. Quick, come over for dinner. You haven't eaten in so long, you must be hungry." Lu Chongshan greeted him too. "Don't just stand there, come sit down for dinner." At the dinner table, Lu Chongshan sat at the main seat with Lu Tingxiao on his left. Initially, he wanted to let little treasure sit on his right, but the little guy's head turned away from him and he quickly hugged Ningxi's neck, refusing to let go. At last, Lu Tingxiao pulled out the chair beside him for Ningxi to sit, while Yan Rui and Qin Mufeng sat opposite them. Visit no. v. 3lb/n. cm for new OVL. Of course, everyone was anxious to see whether little treasure was really willing to speak now. At last, Lu Chongshan and Yan Rui could not suppress it anymore. "Little treasure, do you still feel sick?" Yan Rui asked lovingly. Little treasure was focused on being fed porridge by Ningxi and he did not answer. Yan Rui naturally did not take that to heart, so she continued to ask caringly, "Little treasure, is the porridge nice? You're sick, so you can't eat food that's too oily. Later, Grandma will make you more delicious food, okay? You're not too well. Grandpa has applied for leave from school for you, so you don't have to go to school for the next few days. Yen Rui and Lu Chongshan continued to talk to Little Treasure. However, his reaction towards their questions seemed to be a little slow. He only gave very indifferent responses and did not even hear some. It seemed like he had returned to his old ways that very night. This made Yen Rui anxious. The little bun had finally said one word, and before they could even confirm if he was really willing to speak, how could he return to his original ways again? Ting Xiao, what's wrong with Little Treasure? Why does he have such a blank look on his face? Yen Rui asked worriedly. She looked forward to Little Treasure talking, but he not only kept mute, he did not even respond. Of course, she was worried. Lu Chongshan responded unhappily, what blank look? He's just only recovered, it's normal to have delayed reactions. Actually, Lu Chongshan could not hide his worry. Little Treasure had suffered from such a long spell of fever that it might have affected his brain. Qin Mufeng frowned, worried about Little Treasure's condition as well, since there was something unusual about the whole thing. Ningxi was playing with the little bun just a while ago, so she clearly knew that he was fine. But she felt a little awkward in front of Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui, and she was well aware that saying anything wrong could cause her trouble, so she tried to keep quiet. She played the role of an invisible person and solely focused on feeding the little bun. Although Lu Tingxiao did not know anything about what went on inside everyone's minds, he looked calm and collected. He looked at his son, who was being fed by Ningxi obediently, and casually spoke to him, Little Treasure, there is something on Auntie Xiaoxi's head. Little Treasure instantly took a break from his dinner and looked up at Auntie Xiaoxi's hair, then he started combing through it with his small, tender hands. He could not find it and looked at his father desperately. Where was it? Lu Tingxiao then gave Ningxi a deboned fish using his chopsticks. Maybe I saw it wrongly. Everyone was surprised. Little Treasure was shocked. Ningxi was helpless at the mercy of the devil's sneaky attack. Both Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui were speechless by their son's cunning act. Qin Mufeng just coughed. Lu Tingxiao's act reminded them that even though Little Treasure was sick and weak, he could still react well, therefore everything was fine. He was only reacting to the things that he was interested in. Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui just looked at each other, both not looking very happy about it. Little Treasure probably wanted to ignore them because they had forcefully kept him by their side and had restricted him from meeting Ningxi. Sensing the air turn heavy, Qin Mufeng felt that he should do something as a psychiatrist. Qin Mufeng let out a soft cough, then took out a paper and wrote a word on it. He put it in front of Little Treasure and asked him gently, Little Treasure, do you know how to read this word? Qin Mufeng had written a shi word on the paper. Shi as in Ningxi. He was trying to make Little Treasure talk. Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui were impressed by what the professional psychiatrist was trying to do. Lu Tingxiao saw the word and remained silent. Little Treasure stared at the word while everyone watched him. Top VL updates on n/o/v/lb/in.com. As everyone was feeling nervous, Little Treasure looked at Qin Mufeng funnily, then used a pen and wrote on the paper, She. He then put the pen away and looked at Ningxi, signaling her to continue the feeding. How naughty of Little Treasure. But he was too cute. Qin Mufeng was speechless. He thought he was smart, but apparently not as smart as this kid. Although Qin Mufeng was outsmarted by the little bun, Lu Chongshan and Yen Rui looked much better now. They were no longer worried if Little Treasure's brain had been affected by the fever. They knew that Little Treasure was actually a smart little kid. He had done it on purpose when he gave Qin Mufeng a funny look. This kid looked and behaved exactly like Lu Tingxiao when he was still a child. Both of them did not like to talk, but they were really intelligent. Both the elders looked at Little Treasure with love and pride, and Qin Mufeng cringed internally at what happened, but at least his sacrifice made some contribution and sparked the kid's intelligence. In the end, the dinner ended in peace, but it could have been better. No matter how much they tried, Little Treasure kept his mouth firmly shut. Ningxi knew that they would have something to discuss after dinner, so she brought Little Treasure back to the room first. What now? Little Treasure still refuses to speak. Yan Rui sighed and Lu Chongshan's expression darkened. To redeem his reputation, Qin Mufeng started to explain in his professional opinion. It's understandable, Little Treasure still remains silent because the trauma is still there. Subconsciously, he kept himself in a state of aloofness and self-protection. Yet, when he's in a totally relaxed state with someone he can fully trust, he will talk without any guidance. And this is similar to what I've predicted before. So you're saying that to get Little Treasure to talk again, we need that. Lu Chongshan coughed. He stopped himself from using the phrase "that woman." We'd still need Ningxi? Qin Mufeng nodded. Yes, Ningxi is the key factor here, or more specifically, the decisive factor. Actually, Qin Mufeng had said this again and again, but Lu Chongshan was too stubborn and refused to listen to him. Their hopes were dashed by this conclusion, causing Lu Chongshan and Yan Rui to feel a little disappointed. Yan Rui sighed again. We've looked for so many doctors before and all of them said that Little Treasure might never be able to speak again. At least, now we know that it's possible that he can. Lu Chongshan nodded. Yes, it's something worth noting. He then looked at his son who stood at the side. Follow me. In the study room. Lu Chongshan stayed silent for a little while, as though he was deliberating an important decision. After a few moments, he spoke. You can take Little Treasure away. Find PD Tez on n/VLN.cm. Lu Tingxiao was not surprised by Lu Chongshan's decision. Nevertheless, the change in his decision was much better than the scenarios he had imagined in mind, and he didn't too expect Little Treasure to speak either. I admit that I didn't take good enough care of Little Treasure while he was here. It's my responsibility. But handing Little Treasure over to you doesn't mean I completely trust you. If Little Treasure has any issues when he's with you, I'll take him back immediately and you shall have no objections to it. What do you think? Lu Chongshan asked him with a serious expression. Lu Tingxiao nodded, agreed. Lu Chongshan turned away and waved his hand impatiently as if afraid of regretting his decision. You can go now. In Little Treasure's bedroom. Ningxi was holding the little bun tightly and her thoughts were wildly speculating about Operation Stealing Bun. Even though she had bought herself a little more time now, in the end, she would still have to be separated from the little bun. She desperately wanted to take the little bun and run away now. As she was having all sorts of thoughts, a deep voice came through. What are you thinking about? Bun stealing. Ningxi said without thinking. Ha ha, the man laughed. Ningxi then realized it was the devil talking to her and she looked up in fear. It's all over now. She had actually told him her unforgivable plan. Both? Lu Tingxiao asked mysteriously. Ningxi was wondering what he meant, then she understood and blushed. The devil was asking her if she wanted to steal both the big bun and the small bun. How cunning! Well, actually she wanted to. Lu Tingxiao stopped teasing her and commanded, let's go. Go. Ningxi's expression fell. Finally, it was time to leave. The little bun realized something was wrong and he held on to Ningxi tightly as he looked at his father with an aloof expression. Under the intense stare of the both of them, Lu Tingxiao replied with a gentle gaze, let's go, together. Until they were bundled together in the same car, Ningxi still could not believe it. She had actually left the house with the little bun in her arms. Top VL updates on n/o/v/lb/in.com. It was like a dream come true. What an unexpected bout of happiness. It seemed like Lu Tingxiao had successfully persuaded his parents. Ningxi sighed in relief. The little bun will be staying in Platinum Palace from now on, and it will be easier for her to visit him. But the end result was far more surprising than she had expected. Lu Tingxiao had Qingfeng stop at her apartment, then he opened the door and let Ningxi and the little bun down from the car. This is... Ningxi was dumbfounded. Lu Tingxiao looked at the confused girl and his son who was clinging onto Ningxi now, and he said gently, "You don't have to steal the little bun. I'll give him to you." Huh? Ningxi was really confused now. What did the devil mean? He was giving the little bun to her directly? This is your son, how could you? Is he really your biological son? But it was her dream after all. Now, she did not have to steal him away as the owner was just giving him to her? The little bun was surprised by his father's words as well. In fact, he did not look sad for being abandoned by his father. Instead, his eyes were shining and he looked really happy. Great! Father is giving me away. When he saw his son's genuine smile that obviously showed that he was not feeling heavy-hearted about being separated from his father, Lu Tingxiao was a little at a loss. Boss, you're just kidding, right? Ningxi asked in disbelief. Lu Tingxiao picked his son up in his arms and walked right into the apartment. He was proving through his actions that he was serious about it. Lu Tingxiao reminded Ningxi, who was still in a daze, when they reached her place, opened the door. Oh! Ningxi quickly took out her keys and unlocked the door. Lu Tingxiao put his son down when he got inside and told her, "You shouldn't have any jobs for a while, so I'll have Little Treasure stay with you for this period of time. If there is anything urgent, just give me a call, I'll have Butler Yuan over to take care of Little Treasure." Well, truckers, that's all for this part. See you all in the next part.